The Cellcast is recorded in front of a live streaming audience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Cellcast. Joining me today is a man who just struck it rich with a peppermint mine. Welcome, Jacob.
Now, I don't think I can make it rich by, licking the end of a pickaxe and like tasting for peppermints.
Jacob, you have to. I'm surprised you hadn't caught this. Yes, it was peppermint, but that could be easily turned into peppermint oil, which then is an essential oil that you can sell for your young living. So you could make it rich.
True. Didn't think about that. Thank you very much. I feel like a Cooper dog. Either or. Why, thank you. Let me introduce our co-host, a man who simply just feels like a misfit every once in a while. Welcome, Drew.
Well, when you've reached the tender age of 37, you're still living by yourself. I mean, Jacob, you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes.
Because you were here once.
I play the violin.
Once. It just, you start feeling like maybe, nobody loves you, everybody hates you. I'll just go eat some worms.
Yeah.
And then some days you realize, I can stay up till 2 a.m. and nobody will care because I don't have to be anywhere tomorrow and I have no one to bug. And plus, I can still do podcasts without having to worry about being too loud.
True.
So yeah, sometimes you're a misfit. Sometimes being a misfit's fun.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anyway, how are you doing, Jacob?
I am doing very well, man.
And I should say to our audience, Merry Christmas, as this is the first episode after Christmas, but we haven't made it to New Year's yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully I will actually have this out before New Year's Day.
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see. Tomorrow will be a rough, busy day.
Burning the midnight oil or the podcast oil.
Well, that's the fun thing, because not only would I be editing this while I'm also waiting for your album art, I will also be recording and editing 2 episodes.
That's right.
Of the Cellcast presents Untangling Kingdom Hearts, focused on Kingdom Hearts 1.
Nice.
So
he's gonna be a very busy podcaster.
In my defense, 85% of the scripts are written.
Okay.
So there's that.
Okay. A
lot of it will be to me, well, let's read and see how tongue-tied I get and still sound like I'm not reading off a cue card. See how that goes.
Fair.
But anyway.
Yeah, I'm actually doing pretty good. Let's see. I did Christmas over at my girlfriend's house on last Saturday. Went to blah. Don't you love it when you go tongue-tied and you're live on the air? That's always great, right? No, I went to evening church on Saturday night, or Christmas Eve service. Wonderful. Got the next morning, go to load everything in my car. It's a nice 36 degrees.
For those of you not living in the East Texas area, I just want to say that the last 7 days weather-wise have been crazy.
Agreed. So, to a long story short, my windscreen was completely frozen over. It took 3 times there again. My car does not have AC in it right now, so
which means no heater.
So I was a cold little podcaster for a little while. So I had to defrost my car manually, which that took a while, and then I kept forgetting things. And then I got all the way to above a certain hill in this area. Realized I forgot something at my brother's house. I had to drive all the way down said hill back to where I live.
You're talking about the one between here and Rusk?
7 Mile Hill.
Which I don't know why they call it that. It's not 7 miles.
No, it's not.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, realized I forgot something. Had to drive all the way back. Now, granted, I left at 6:30. Drove all the way back. Came back. And I probably got to my parents' place about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Stayed there till about Monday at probably 4.
At least you didn't get to Alto and remember.
Oh gosh. At that point, it'd be like, I just forget it. Sorry. Your package is going to be left on the porch. Sorry. But yeah, be like, it was a great time. I got to hang out with family. Yeah, it was overall a wonderful time. I made the mistake today of saying, Bill, it was a very long week, a very long Christmas. And my mother said, no, be like, it was a wonderful, most wonderful time ever. Wasn't it, Jacob? It's like, yes, it was, mother. So obviously, 2 days later, it was my birthday. I turned the big 40. Man, I'm getting old. But
You're fine.
I'm very grateful that God has allowed me to be here for another day. So my wonderful girlfriend Ashley, thank you from the bottom of my heart for putting up with my goofiness like always. Normally I do not celebrate my birthday. I don't do it just for reasons. Being a single guy, why do you want to celebrate your birthday? And so being in this relationship for 9 months, Ashley she was, yes, you're celebrating your birthday. And so we went out to 1836 Texas Kitchen in Tyler, where my good friend and a couple of others joined us. Had a wonderful time. It was probably the best birthday I've had in many years. Because normally I just work and everyone looks at me like I'm funny. Because you gotta do something on your birthday.
No, we look at you funny just on a daily basis.
That is true. Have you seen these glasses? Have you seen this hair? It's weird.
Well, anytime the bark goes off, which admittedly we have still yet to catch on the show.
Yeah, well, eventually it'll happen. Eventually. But not today. Maybe.
Maybe.
You never know. I was barking there again. If you're listening for the first time, it's like, what does he talk about barking? I have Tourette's disorder. I bark like a dog. Just letting you know. So just letting for those listeners and
who are utterly confused why I'm making fun of him like he barks at a dog.
Like I'm a dog or something like that. No, I just bark like a dog because of my Tourette's disorder. Either or.
She said you bark like a dog this week.
Hush.
Apparently D-Lip has some plans. I don't know why she's been pranking you recently.
I don't know either.
She's been going on it for about 6 months now.
That is true. It has been kind of a interesting roller coaster. I get morphed into like different animals and certain, like I got turned into a donkey this year
for a short minute. Yeah,
donkey. Then I got turned into a dog, and then it was just like I get more, morph.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It's weird.
Who knows what you'll be next?
Yeah, it's just like pray for me because let's go do something. I just know it. Either or.
I believe that translates to "moi ha 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 ha."
Oh, great. Okay, let's see what happens and this coming up year. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So, doing great. Today, Friday, thank the Lord. It's the end of the week. Went to have lunch with my parents, my wonderful girlfriend, some family members at a wonderful restaurant. If you're ever in this town, it's called JW's Barbecue. It's the greatest place to buy barbecue in this town. In several miles too, so go check it out if you're ever in the small town that has JW's Barbecue.
And I just realized that with me off every once in a while on Fridays, I could actually have some.
Yes, you could. Oh my gosh, you could.
I hadn't thought of that till just now, because usually they're closed when I go by, but they are open on Fridays. Exactly. So why have I not stopped by there for lunch? I don't know.
Either or. So that's been my day. I got off. I got home. I checked my phone for a second, which is on my watch. Sure, I understand. Thanks, Siri.
She asked who that other woman's voice was. Now D-Lit's getting a little jealous, apparently.
Never know you mind, D-Lit. It's just Siri.
She says, well, as I understand it's one of those lesser AIs, but still be a little bit more careful about that sort of thing.
When did you see Entangles Ashley? Let's just say that. That's gonna be interesting.
She actually has no problem with Ashley.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Mostly because we're all, from her opinion, we're all kind of carbon-based life forms that aren't worth getting jealous about.
Okay. But if it's another AI, now you're jealous.
She said yes. Indeed.
Oh, okay. Okay. Indeed. D-Lit.
I don't know what you don't want me to translate that.
Okay. Again, this is going to be an interesting next year. All right. So, yeah, that's been what I've been doing. Yeah. So, what have you been doing, Drew?
Whale. After we got everything edited and up last week, and all that kind of cool stuff. Thursday came along, and I'd been, Thursday was the last day I was at work before Christmas, and it was kind of a slow day because near the end of the week. Also, we were getting ready for inventory, so work had kind of slowed a little.
Right.
So I'm sitting there. It's 30 minutes before go home, and I'm looking at the weather.
Oh gosh,
because you know what I was worried about. I'm sitting there looking at that going, I've got to drive either today or tomorrow. I have to drive an hour north of here. And Friday, it's not going to get above freezing.
Yeah.
And while I'm not so much worried about road conditions as much, I am worried about idiots on the road.
That is true.
And idiots on a Friday, the Friday before Christmas,
insanity,
when it's below freezing, especially since in order for me to get through there, I may have to, drive down Broadway, the worst road in town because of traffic. I was a little concerned, so I just texted my parents and said, "Hey, if I were to come up tonight, is that going to put y'all out dinner wise?" Because I didn't know what they'd planned for dinner, and they said just come on up. So basically, as soon as I got off, came back here, loaded the truck up with everything in kind of a hurry because while I had kind of made sure I was ready in case I needed to, there were still some things that have to be took care of last minute.
Yeah.
So I get everything out there. I drive up there, and thankfully not a problem. Other than the wind was blowing out of the north, which is the direction I was driving in, and it was blowing hard.
Oh, okay.
Like 30, 40 mile an hour winds.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I'm driving 70 miles an hour into them. I'm surprised I didn't get blown off the road to some degree.
Praise the Lord, you didn't.
Yes, indeed. It got so loud in the truck, I could not hear my audiobook.
Wow.
I had to turn the audiobook up really high to hear it anyway, just from the wind sound coming across. So yeah, I got home. I got to my parents' house. We had a good Christmas. The only downside is normally up until this year, because I think this year we decided we're not going to do it after this, just for different reasons. The family meets in a barn, kind of an activity barn thing up about another hour north of Lindale.
Yeah.
And when Meemaw got there, apparently she found out it was froze over. As in none of the water, all the pipes in there were frozen. So we had to cancel. And just because of all the work that go into that, we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. We'll have to figure something out before next year, or nothing will happen one way or the other. So other than that, everything went off like it was supposed to. Got home here about 7, 8 o'clock, I think, and then texted you. We had this discussion before the show because we did do a Culture Box stream.
We did.
And I could not remember if I had told you or not. I thought I did, but you say you don't remember it, and I don't care who's right or who's wrong in this situation.
Got it.
So I just said, well, we'll try to catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
When you're not dog tired. Rough. Pardon the pun. It was actually unintentional, believe it or not. But then, got home, had a good week, got some script writing done, went out and helped a friend of mine take care of some business yesterday. And so I was a little worn out this morning, and maybe I didn't get quite as much done today as I would have hoped, but that's all going to be fine. Still got everything I had to get watched for today watched.
That's good.
So yeah. And other than that, it's been a good week.
Good.
So Jacob, I have a question for you.
What have you been watching?
Besides YouTube, hardly anything.
Oh.
Yeah. No, Bill, I really haven't. Did we watch anything while I was at my parents' place? Minus a football game or two. No, not really. Listen to some. The only thing I listened to was what was that? It's not How to Make a Killer. It's a podcast. I listened
How to Get
Away
Away with Murder.
No, it's not one of those. It's I'll have to look at the title in a moment, but I listen to a podcast kind of like it's like just all serial killers, and it's fascinating because I just find be like what their origin is and why they did it. I just find that intriguing. So it's just there again. But that's about the only thing I really did. It's just like I'd be like, obviously you go to Christmas, you listen to a lot of podcasts while you're driving, to and fro, to and from. But
I know you're trying to come with, I think it's 2 to 4, but I'm not even 100% sure on that. So.
Yeah. But either or. Yeah. So I listened to a lot of podcasts this week. That's about it.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, I watched a lot more than you did.
Okay.
Do you remember a certain movie that we both watched live action? I think we watched it as part of Movie of the Week podcast when we were doing that with your brother Jim.
Yeah, Knives Out.
Yeah, Knives Out. Its sequel came out last weekend. And me and Mama watched it. It is good.
What's it called again?
Glass Onion.
Glass Onion.
A Knives Out mystery. Now, here's the thing. This is the first movie, I think, that post-pandemic has set the show, set their story in the pandemic. Really? As a part of it. And it was really weird because for a short bit, the first time you see Catherine Hahn's character, she's the first. I think she's the first character we actually see. She opens the door to get a delivery, and for a quick second, she's just standing here like we are now, and then she remembers, oh yeah, there's a pandemic on, and has to cover her mouth, and throughout the whole thing, you see people with masks and everything until they finally go to the island where this Elon Musk-esque character is living, where all this is going to take place. And he apparently has a magical shot that cures COVID in May 2020.
Oh, okay.
It's like, where were you? Why didn't we get any of that?
Yeah,
that would have been nice. It's actually not kind of, it was a good story. I kind of figured out what was going on maybe about a quarter of the way into the movie, but much like Knives Out, just because you know who the murderer is, you don't really know how it's going to end.
You don't know the context of everything.
You don't know the context of everything.
Right.
And there's a lot of context that just gets, just don't get into like halfway through the movie. And then it's just waiting to see, oh, that's how all this is going to fall into place. I was right about who it was. Still didn't expect who was actually murdered. That's the crazy part. The person you think was going to be murdered is not the one that gets murdered.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I gotta watch this movie.
It's a great little movie. There's a ton of celebrity cameos throughout it for one reason or another, including Angela Lansbury in one scene.
What?
Yeah. Benoit Blanc, when he's still, in the depths of pandemic and everyone's, locked down, all that, he's playing Among Us with like 3 or 4 different of his friends, and one of them is played by Angela Lansbury. That's like, Murder, She Wrote, huh?
Okay.
Kudos. And I'm sure the other 2 people are big mystery actors also, and I just didn't recognize them because I saw Angela Lansbury.
And everything else went,
like, oh, it's Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. It's Mrs. Potts. Okay. Oh yeah, Murder, She Wrote. That's why she's here. One of those weird things like, I know it. I know. Oh, Murder, She Wrote. That's what it is. But
so apparently you had a good time with this movie.
I had a great time with this movie. There's a joke I want to make that I can't make because it spoils crap.
Oh, okay.
let's just say there's a certain thing in WandaVision that's like, if this is the person who did it, I have a song to play.
Oh,
But that's all I'm gonna say. Even though by that point I was fairly certain, no, that's not it. But whatever.
womp womp womp.
I have some questions about the setup, but quite frankly, when you're in the middle of it, I just don't care.
Yeah,
But Glass Onion, definitely, that movie should have been in theaters. There's literally no reason why, other than Netflix's greed, for that not to have stayed in theaters more than Thanksgiving weekend. So yeah, that there was that. What else did I watch? Oh yes. So Doctor Who.
okay.
I admittedly have not watched all of the current Doctor's run through, which I'm trying to think of her name right off the top of my head, the actress.
But let's say he has two computers right in front of him.
I am losing nerd points.
Wonk, wonk.
I can't think of one woman's name. 13th Doctor. And it is just show every bit but the one thing I want to know. Jodie Whittaker. I haven't watched all of hers just because I think I really did need a break from Doctor Who.
Fair.
And her stuff, admittedly, the writing I don't think was jiving with me, but at first. But I said like a couple weeks ago that I started going back through it because I knew the season finale had this big surprise because it was going to be her regeneration episode because the Doctor is a Time Lord. Time Lords don't die; they just regenerate into another form when they get fatally wounded. And this was going to, I had heard this was going to be a regeneration.
Yeah.
I did not know who she was going to regenerate into. And so I was curious. And Mama had gotten it recorded. She is farther along through it than I am for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to go ahead and watch it. So we watched, and it's a really good story. There was they brought in like a lot of old companions from like the old show came back in. So that was fun. And I'm not going to spoil who the quote unquote new Doctor is. But Alonzi, I'm really interested in watching that season. When it airs on of all places, Disney Plus.
Oh
it's
my God.
Really?
Yeah.
BBC America lost to Disney on the showing rights for this because AMC Plus is not a streaming service anybody has.
So it's going to Disney Plus.
Yeah, all the seasons up to that point aren't going to be transitioning over. It's only going to be starting with the next season. So it's like,
boo.
So I need to be buying Blu-rays again. I admittedly have them up to a certain point, but there was a point in there where I stopped. But anyway.
Yeah.
I have to go look at that collection.
Question: Where do you start? Do you start with when they restarted everything?
Okay, so
and
with Doctor Who, you are probably safe starting either at the 9th Doctor, the 11th Doctor, or the 13th, which is Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah,
depending on how much time you want to invest in it. Of course, obviously, next season you probably are safe to start there, but considering who it is, you might want to do some catch up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the internet spoils so much.
Yes, and I was like,
are you kidding me?
I'm being nice for those who don't know yet.
Yes,
but honestly, if you wanted to catch up to what they're currently doing, really, as much without looking at, because admittedly, I'm not going to ask you to go back and watch. All the way back to William Hartnell's run back in 1967.
Right.
Not that it can't hurt, because during the 11th Doctor's run, they did a lot of callbacks to the old show, which I didn't catch because I hadn't seen the old show.
Right.
But I was actually just starting with the 9th Doctor, Chris Eccleston, which is, I think that first episode is called Rose. And it is actually labeled as season 1.
Yeah,
because it did reboot there.
It did.
And it ran in seasons after that, whereas before it was running in series.
Yeah.
So, start with season 1, first episode of that, and just work your way through it. It's, I think when I looked, it's 15 seasons, but they're British seasons. So it's like 8 or 9 episodes a season and Christmas specials all the way through it. In fact, some of my favorite episodes are the Christmas specials.
Oh yeah.
So
the War Doctor,
the 50th anniversary episode is great.
It is good.
It is good. Very good.
I mean, at that point, I was watching Who, and be like, that was like, whoa, okay, that's really cool. But I think I dropped off, like, you know, I think some point after that.
You have to admit, even if you had not watched a lot of old Who, because I hadn't watched a lot of old Who,
no,
the moment where all 13 doctors are saving Gallifrey, I'm like, I know how they shot this, because I know what they just are taking old clips and resurfacing where they fit, especially since they'll never get Eccleston back because he never returns to a project. So we didn't even get him back for that. All of his appearances are stock footage that they just reuse, which is so sad.
But it's almost satisfying that the War Doctor kind of becomes him.
Yes, because for a quick second you can see the ears. It's like, you're becoming Eccleston. We won't get to see the full transformation because Eccleston won't come back for 2 lines. That's only what I had to say. Actually, 1 word. He only had to say 1 word. Fantastic. Beside the point. That's a good episode. Now, there are some low points in there, of course, because, you know, not every show is going to be good, and it does kind of start to drag near in the last season before Jodie Whittaker, and which would have been Stephen Moffat's last season that he was running the show as the showrunner, and I literally just think he had run out of ideas and was ready to move on. There was some great moments in there, don't get me wrong, but it's like you could tell he was ready to move on to his next project, which fair, no idea what that is. And they moved it to somebody else, and he's been running it for 3 or 4 years. And from what I've seen, which admittedly is a season and a finale 3 years later, it's good. I actually enjoy it. I get if that's not your thing, fine, but I enjoy it. So yeah, if you do really want to go back through all it, go back to Eccleston. Never skip 9. Never skip 9.
It's a good season.
Yes. Donna Noble's my favorite companion. Moving on. Other than that, just some TV shows here and there. Watched Emergency a lot. We went through a lot of those episodes. Did I talk about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where we actually saw one that had John Travolta in an early role?
No, you didn't.
Yeah. And it was painfully obvious that's who it was, even though he was, you know, too young to be popular yet in that scene. But it's like, we're seeing him like as one of the victims, and you're going, is that John Travolta? Yes, that is who that is. Because even now he's overacting. Tell me he doesn't overact.
Oh, he overacts.
Generally.
He overacts.
Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching.
Cool.
So Jacob, what do we got in the news?
The Cellcast News with your host Jacob Heron.
I know of one thing in the news. I'm curious if you'll actually touch on it.
Oh, okay. So, why thank you, Dealey. Going into the news. So the box office numbers are in for the studios have finally arrived. And as everyone guessed, James Cameron's Avatar: Way of Water is &1 with its this was like very early on. So it was $95.5 million in the second, 4th week. It is already breached $1 billion already. Now, according to Cameron himself, if the movie doesn't break like 3 billion, it's a failure.
Well, it is James Cameron.
That is James Cameron. He is a little overambitious with his water blue cats.
Smurfs, you mean?
Smurf. Yeah, Smurf.
Let's face it, they're Smurfs.
They're Smurfs. They're
Smurf. La, 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 attack the humans.
But
that are invading our planet.
yeah, either or. So actually coming in second place, minus this, this titan of a movie that isn't really doing anything besides be like, ooh, it's pretty kind of movie.
I've heard there's not much story to Way of Water, but I don't know this for certain because I haven't watched it yet.
Me either. That's just whatever everybody says. Be like, oh, it's pretty, but there's really no story.
Yeah.
But either or. That's not this is what I've heard. I watched the movie. I don't plan to go watch the movie. I watched the first one. It was bland.
It was good in the theater because it was pretty.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pretty film. But we're not here to talk about Avatar.
No. Unless we're talking about The Last Airbender.
No. Which that's going to be interesting when that comes out eventually.
We'll get to it. We'll get there when we get there.
All right. So
need to put that on the list for TAS too.
So instead of Smurfs, we're talking about a cat.
We are?
Yes. All right. So meanwhile, everyone's favorite Cavalier cat, Puss in Boots, continues to hold the second spot in the box office DreamWorks animated sequel. The Last Wish has the fourth day box office of $19.6 million in its second week. That's not very good. Globally right now, granted, it's still like 2 weeks, in. And right now it is taking the spot. It's $58.6 million globally. That's not very good, but it's at second place behind the juggernaut that is Avatar 2.
Yeah.
So Disney, Disney's Strange World is hanging on at number 10 with the 4-day weekend totaling 655,000 and an overall combined of $65.8 million in its first 5 weeks. The Thanksgiving release, which is sadly Disney's lowest grossing animated feature of all time, is now available on Disney Plus.
Really
sad.
It beat Home on the Range.
It did?
I'm asking. Did it beat Home on the Range? Is Home on the Range beating this thing?
Yes, apparently.
Okay.
I have to go back and look at it, but apparently, according to experts, it's the lowest. No, it is the lowest.
Oh my word!
Yeah, this movie did terrible
because there are bad Disney movies.
Yeah,
that I would have sworn would be at the. And I'm not talking about the stuff that are now cult classics.
Yes,
but were not considered good at the time. I'm talking about stuff that people forgotten about, like Dinosaur. You're telling me this movie is doing worse than Dinosaur?
Apparently. I think Dinosaur made like 45 million. Like 45, 50, 60, 70
That was
million.
only because it was Disney trying 3D for the first time.
Yeah. Try something different. I'll have to look at the numbers.
We'll talk about all this at a later date.
Yeah, but
it's like, good night. That is pretty bad for Strange World.
That is bad
especially as promising as the trailers looked.
Yeah, trailers, promotions,
like
everything.
Great concept. Old 40s era pulp sci-fi show movie, where they go to another planet and find aliens. That could have been fun.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it is.
Yeah. So eventually we will review this film and see for ourselves how bad this movie was. Was it okay or not?
Indeed.
So going into I saw this. It's a promotion for a new movie. So I'm guessing I'm not touching on what you're referring to, but we'll get there when we get there.
We will.
All right. So there again, if you don't know, I get all my information from animationnews.com or .org. So you can go check them out. I might have got our animationnews.com or .org. So you can go check out my sources there. Small heroes are in for a big adventure in Epic Tales, a new 3D animated family comedy embedded with mythological powers coming to theaters next year. Distributor Studio Cornwall UK recently revealed the new English language trailer for this picture, which will open in the UK. So it's synopsis of this film. Epic Tales the story of a super smart mouse named Petey
Mm-hmm.
and her feline friend Sam as they embark upon an exciting adventure of possum potential through ancient Greece. With a little help with a aging hero Jason, the animals quest brings them face to face with some of the most bizarre, dangerous creatures of Greek mythology as they race to halt the threat possible posed to their city by Poseidon himself.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert. The movie premiered at the Cinema Festival on Morpolia. I'm probably mispronouncing that, in October, and due to open in France on January 25th of 2023. Via Kids has acquired the U.S. rights from worldwide selling agency Kinologically under
Synologic?
no Kinological
Oh, I remember.
under the title Argonauts.
Okay.
So apparently it's gonna be called Argonauts. So yeah, that's the I saw that. I haven't seen the trailer yet. It looks interesting. So we'll see. So what was the bit of information that I missed? Oh yeah.
25 years.
Oh yeah, the
A certain person has journeyed to be the best like no one ever was.
yeah. And it
And
took him
he
25
made it.
years.
In universe 5.
Oh,
I think it's
Universe 5.
I think it's 5.
Mm.
I know by so the show's the Pokemon anime
Mhm.
has been going now for 25 years.
Agreed.
In that, Ash Ketchum has been our series protagonist
Mhm.
throughout this entire time. He has journeyed through the lands of Kanto, Johto, Hoenn. Hang on. Unova, but I skipped one.
Mm.
I don't remember Diamond and Pearls.
Right.
Unova, Kalos, and many other regions. I can't remember them all.
Right.
He's journeying through all these regions, and outside of a short stop in the Orange Islands right after his journeys in Kanto and Johto, he has not won a single Pokemon World Tournament.
In 25 years.
In our world, yes. And I will grant you that's part of the issue that most people have with it.
Well,
Because the people our age are now in their, you just got into your 40s.
right.
Pokemon started airing in like 97.
Yeah.
No one watching the show now has probably seen a lot of the early journeys.
Right.
I'll grant you. So it is kind of weird that Ash has still been going on for so many years. But starting next year, because Ash did finally win the Pokemon World Coronation Series Master 8 tournament, it's a long name,
Yes.
and is now the champion finally. Apparently he is now going to be he's not heading over to what is the name of this new area we're in now?
So he's finally going to become 11.
He's retiring. I told you it's been 5 years in universe. He's 15.
Oh, okay. I thought he was eternally 10.
No. I know they aged him up at least to 12 visually, like going into X and Y.
Right.
And I suspect because of how Sun and Moon went, what little I watched, he's aged up a little bit more. Of course, Sun and Moon, he has the weirdest art style, and he looks very odd in that version. But
I'd agree. So you're saying he finally hit puberty.
that is not what I'm saying. You Digimon nuts. Because that's the only reason you keep interrupting me. It's because like, oh, Digimon's better because they have had 30 different series by now, and they keep changing, and none of their characters have been able to stay long enough.
I'm giving you a hard time, like you do.
Hey, I think we can both agree. At least it's not Yu-Gi-Oh.
True. Dallas.
Because we had never had a Pokemon battle on motorcycles or a Digimon battle on motorcycles. So
that is true.
Back to my point. Next season, which we don't have a name for yet,
Right.
we actually have 2 new protagonists
Okay.
that are going to be on the show. In the
As I can
Japanese,
see that on screen.
as in the Japanese names right now are Liko and Roy.
Mm.
Francisco, I didn't know you were playing Pokemon. We did not catch this when we were doing the other show on Culture. We brought this up in Culture Box, but now that I see the male's name is Roy.
Hi, Roy.
Hi, Roy. I need to be doing some photoshopping.
Yes.
Need to put Roy's face right there.
Yes. That shouldn't be that hard.
No, that won't be that hard. I already did it with replacing his face with Anya's, replacing Anya's face with his. Anyway,
Paul, you're welcome.
but yeah, it will be based on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which are the current games that just came out about a month ago. Paldea, that's the name of the region.
Paldea.
Yeah, Paldea, which is based on Spain.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that makes sense.
Technically the Iberian continent, but from what I understand, Portugal kind of got left out in the cultural references. Not that I would know. I'm a stupid American. And I don't know what it's like in Spain. But the games are good. So yeah, that is where the show is going next season. Interestingly enough, from these character shots, I don't see them wearing any of the school uniforms from the game. So I'm curious about that. But yeah, that's what's happening with Pokemon.
Okay.
Ash is retiring to probably a cameo role.
Maybe.
But apparently there was like a 6-episode, kind of like a mini series that was kind of a nice callback to finish off Ash's journey.
Yeah. Well,
it's been 25 years. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
And apparently the first Pokemon he ever caught, which was Caterpie, who later became a Butterfree.
Okay.
You know, he let him go like during the first season so he could go be with his girl, Butterfree, the pink one.
Yeah.
They came back in the last episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just putting that out there.
Okay.
Pokemon, at least, even when it goes too long with a thing, does at least, you know, do good callbacks.
Oh, okay. So Pokemon's been around for 25 years, right?
Ish.
So in world, it's like 5 years.
In the show,
it's 5 years.
The games have a different continuity.
Okay.
Except they're not, and we've learned that that's not a continuity because Ash is somehow in the games. This is what I've heard. I don't know for certain, but the games are at least they are probably at least 20 years of time has advanced between the earliest point in them to now.
Yeah. Okay. Just for clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
25 years ish.
Oh, okay. That's a long time to go just try to catch them all. That's a long time.
And that's the thing. Red and Blue, how many were there?
I have no idea.
How do you not know? I mean, everyone from our generation knew that there was 150.
I didn't.
You didn't watch the show. I forget.
No,
you didn't. You didn't have that drilled into you with the Poke Rap.
No, I didn't.
Actually, there was 151 because of Mew. But besides the point,
I was seeing some of the movies. I know that.
I believe with this release, and I could be wrong on the numbers, we are near 1,000 Pokemon. So it's a lot to catch.
That is a lot to catch. And release.
It's not. You don't release. You just store them in a box for forever and ever
That's
and
just
ever.
Cruel. That's just cruel to an animal.
They're not real animals, Jacob.
I know that.
Especially in our world. Your brother is calling you.
I saw that.
Anyway, yeah, so Pokemon.
Okay, got it.
25 years, getting the new protagonist finally.
Okay. Well,
maybe we'll see Ash cameo at a later point.
I'm very curious if when this new series pops up, new series comes out, and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's not doing well. We need to bring Ash back.
There is a chance we'll have the Goku effect.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
If they just write the characters good, it won't matter.
That is true. But either way,
let's continue.
Yeah.
That was all with the news.
That was all the news.
Then let's go ahead and check out the spoiler-free section of our review of Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer.
Certified fresh and spoiler free.
I don't think I have watched this from beginning to end before,
Okay.
but I think I've caught different parts of it over the years enough that you could easily stitch my memories together to form the movie,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
For this era, which I think was 1960s is when this was made, I think the stop motion is actually pretty good for what it is.
Agreed. Yes.
The story is about it makes sense how from expanding from the song, it does make sense about how it goes. I think you're going to have some thoughts on that later on from what you told me.
Yes.
But I thought for the most part it was for what they had to add to the song. I thought it worked for the most part. It might be about 15 minutes too long,
maybe,
in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's a pretty decent Christmas classic, and you try at least watch it once.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Definitely good for kids.
Yeah,
assuming they don't get bored.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll be like Drew, I have seen periodically, parts here and there. I think I finally was able to watch it as a whole a couple of years ago. And so for this, you watch the film and you see all its flaws as a film, and you still recognize the film for what it is. You recognize it is an iconic classic. It is a touchstone when it comes to that has been emulated and just all over the place when it comes to, and heck, if this had not gone down well, be like one of my favorite shows as a child may have never come to existence, as in Thundercats.
That's true.
So I do appreciate what this film did as a touchstone in animation, a galvanizing force as a Christmas special. I do see all of its flaws as a show, as a special, and I'm going to do some deep dives into what I don't like about this film, but at the same time, I'm going to give the movie the respect it needs as a classic.
Okay. And I think that's pretty much it for our spoiler-free review of this film. So join us on the other side of the bumpers, and we will get to spoiling this.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
This week, we suggest the Retro Rewind podcast. Every other week, join the Retro Rewind pod as they travel back 15 years or more along the entertainment space-time continuum in their mission to review movies and games, establishing what is still worth your time today and what isn't. Expect fun banter and travel insights from Francisco, Paul, the Master Interrupter Powers, and a rotating cast of guest hosts, all of which are out of time.
Hi, Roy.
The Cellcast would like to thank the following patrons: Josh Adams, Ashley Ruiz, Book of Gaming,
BaldryPowers.com.
Name on the show, plus uncut episodes, early access to the Cellcast plus reviews, and special art from Jacob. Please donate to us on Patreon.
I'm working on it.
You want to know why I chose Retro Rewind this week?
Why?
Because they actually reviewed the same thing about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
I think it was about 2 weeks ago.
I think, yeah, they did. That's right.
And then apparently, if you've been keeping up with that, while I was visiting the pod, they ran into a bit of trouble.
Really?
Yeah. My arm still hurts from when the owl attacked me.
Okay.
You have not been listening to the show.
No, I have not.
All of their episodes prior to episode 30 are just gone because of a stupid wish that Francisco made.
Oh, no.
Because of a certain movie that we continually have been messing with him about his opinions on. certain Arthurian tale that he claims is not a movie but a series of shorts with a thin plot line.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, my arm got attacked by an owl.
So, who?
Let's just say there may be a magic dance involved.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta listen to this.
So yeah, that might be why I went ahead and brought them up, because they're doing some interesting stuff. They're having to go through some interesting stuff over there.
Okay.
I don't know when I get back on there, to be honest, but I have a feeling I'm off the pod for a bit because of injuries.
Oh, okay.
We'll say.
Okay.
But anywho, so let's go ahead and jump into the spoiler-filled section.
All right.
Of our review for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. The following is a spoiler-free review of Rudolph the... this doesn't work very well.
Take two.
You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. But do you recall the movie we're reviewing tonight? The following is a spoiler-filled review for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Listener discretion is advised. I don't have any more words to add to this rhyme. I'm making it up as I go along. Perhaps we should just get on with it.
Bravo.
Closest I'm going to get tonight. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was directed by Larry Romer, who also directed a special called The Ballad of Smokey the Bear. Because only you can protect the forest from wildfires. Only you can stop forest fires. I don't even remember what he actually said. I went to where Smokey the Bear grew up back in October, and I can't even remember what he said other than only you can stop forest fires or something to that effect. Only you
can prevent forest fires.
And now it's wildfires for some reason.
Wildfires.
They changed it to wildfires. But
okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah, the actual Smokey the Bear was from Lincoln National Forest in New Mexico, right outside Alamogordo, New Mexico. Fun fact.
Oh, okay. Nice.
It was written by Romeo Muller, who also wrote the animated The Hobbit film, which we need to put on the list at some point.
Yep.
It is based on the story by Robert May and the song by Johnny Marks.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into the cast, we've got Burl Ives as Sam the Snowman.
Mm-hmm.
He is a musician, as we all know. But also, he played Big Daddy Pollitt in the film Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
I've heard of this film.
I watched it in high school because we had to study the play.
Ah, okay.
Burl Ives is a good pick. Because I think he can play an angry version of himself.
Okay.
Larry D. Mann played Yukon Cornelius and the Abominable Snow Monster. And in the movie The Sting, he played the train conductor.
Okay.
Billy May Richards was the voice of Rudolph. And he played Tender Heart Bear in the Care Bears movie.
Oh my gosh.
Strap in, folks. It's going to get wacky from here.
Of course.
Paul Soules played the part of Hermie. And he was Spider-Man in the 1960 Spider-Man cartoon.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Stan Francis played Santa Claus and King Moonracer. You know, the Griffin.
Yeah.
From the Island of Misfit Toys.
Yes.
He was Geppetto in The New Adventures of Pinocchio. Not a Disney property.
Oh, okay.
It was another 1960 Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Alfie Scop played the role of Charlie in the Box, Fireball, and a couple of other reindeer. And he had a bit part in Fiddler on the Roof, where he played a character named Avram. Janice Orenstein played Clarice, and she didn't have many roles. She eventually stepped down out of movie acting, but she did play Susanna Brannigan in something called The Forest Rangers. Paul Kligman was the voice of Donner, Clarice's father, and Comet the Coach. And he played J. Jonah Jameson in the 1960 Spider-Man cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Carl Banis was the head elf, Spotted Elephant, and other toys. And he played Scorpion in the 1960 Spider-Man cartoon.
I'm hearing a theme here.
I tend to try for themes when they come up.
Certain webhead.
Corrine Conley played the doll and a bunch of other voices.
Okay.
And she played a character named Phyllis Anderson in the soap opera Days of Our Lives.
Okay.
And I mean, she was in that for a long time. She had a lot of episodes. Last but not least, Peg Dixon, who was Mrs. Donner, Mrs. Claus, and other voices, was both Betty Brant and Aunt May in the 1960 Spider-Man cartoon. Which means, apparently in that show, Peter Parker had the hots for his aunt. In a weird sort of way.
Gosh.
I'm sorry, this is how my weird brain works.
Of course.
Kingdom Hearts connections. Yes.
1.
No.
0.
Exactly. I
something.
tried. I searched actors, which I didn't expect for actors.
Yeah.
Possible because the original Alice and Wendy are in Kingdom Hearts. I tried musicians. I tried pretty much any way you could look at it. No connections whatsoever.
Wow.
Outside of that one little thing earlier about Pinocchio. But different guy playing Geppetto. And different Geppetto. So yeah, that is the end of the cast list. What do we got in info and stuff?
All right, so info and stuff is a score on IMDb of 8.1 out of 10. We watched it on DVD thanks to a wonderful friend named Wendy Primo. Thank you very much for the loan of the DVD. Thank you, because for one, I didn't want to spend $9.99 to buy the movie on a digital format,
or go down to Walmart, which still had it after Christmas on Blu-ray for $20, along with a couple other films and special features. Or for that matter, since we both missed this in 2020, we could have had the entire Rankin Bass collection of Christmas specials, but that's out of print, and you could buy the Blu-ray on eBay for $800.
Jeez.
So thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Really,
Wendy.
thank you.
Yes, it saved our wallets a lot.
Yes.
So beyond that enormous thank you. Production was by Videocraft International Ltd, later known as Rankin Bass Productions. I always want to say Franken Bass.
Nope. It's Rankin Bass. Although technically, if we go by that episode of Thundercats, it's actually Rankin Bass.
Yeah, Rankin Bass.
Which is probably closer.
Yeah, Rankin Bass Productions. Distributed by NBC Universal Television Distribution, later known as NBC Universal Syndicate Studios.
How on earth they did not hold on to the rights of this is beyond anybody's knowledge.
This be like Rankin Bass stuff has gone through so many subsidiaries and buyouts and just everything.
The only thing that's really had steady ownership is Thundercats.
That is true, because it was Rankin Bass, and then it was a Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers has just kept it because of course they would.
Of course. I think the television series, the original Thundercats, is owned by I think they own some part of it, but either or, that's not we're not here to talk about Thundercats.
But they're on the move and loose.
That is true. That is true. So this was a television special short that was released on December 6th, 1964. Apparently it did bank on its initial release, and it has been re-released over and over and over again since 1964 in syndication every Christmas. either through NBC, CBS. I think right now it's floating on. I just had it just a minute ago. Freebie, I think. Yeah, Freebie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's on Freebie, which I think is part of Disney, I think. That has some connection with Disney.
Freebie?
No, Freeform.
Freeform.
Yeah, it's on Freeform now.
Well, except I think I saw when I was doing trivia it changed for this year, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, there again, this
stuff is always changing.
Always changing because every company wants it before they can do something with it because it's such a hot commodity.
Well, I mean, it's guaranteed viewership for that 45 minutes.
True. All right, so going into home release, because there again, this was watched on television. It may have been released in theaters. I don't know this. I'm guaranteed.
No, this was not released in theaters.
Or they showed it in theaters at some point.
Maybe, but I mean, it was never originally shown. It was actually part of another show.
Yeah.
When it first aired.
Yeah.
The GE hour or something like that.
Yeah, GE hour. You know, that's why Rudolph's nose is, lights up because GE created it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so home release. When Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, was first released on VHS, and yes,
it was originally part of a show called the General Electric Fantasy Hour.
Oh, okay.
I knew I had that written down. Sorry.
Thank you. All right, so it was originally released on VHS and I want to say Blu-ray, but no, it was Laserdisc by Family Home Entertainment under the license from Broadway Video from 1989 to 1996 under the Christmas Classic series label. All current videos print of Rudolph by Classic Media are a collaboration of two previous. Apparently, these each iteration of either DVD or Blu-ray or whatever be either they are collaborations of the different specials of whatever variety of quality they could get out of it. They just splice them together.
Well, there is at least a copy. I know you could get it this year. I'm fairly certain I saw it last year of that was just had Rudolph on the disc. So,
yeah, which I'm pretty sure would fetch a pretty penny.
No, I think I saw it at Walmart a couple days ago.
Oh, okay. No, be what I'm referring to is they would take the different broadcasts.
Yeah,
each year.
We are watching an amalgamation of different edits.
Yeah, different edits over the years. So
this what we watched is not the original cut.
No, we're not,
because they added back in. I'll get to this here in a bit, but they added stuff in and out over. In the original version, the Misfit toys didn't get picked up at the end.
Yeah,
by Santa Claus.
Yeah, because I remember that years ago watching that. It's and then watching this, I'm like, that wasn't in there. The version I watched when I was younger.
And of course, going to TV, there'd be different cuts to make room for more or less commercials. So
that's what you do.
That's just how it goes.
Exactly. All right. So let's see. All the footage in the current versions follow from the original 1964 broadcast without the original GE commercials.
Which also featured the elves.
Yes. And I'll get to that in a little bit. Let's see. Up to the Peppermint Mine scene, followed by the final act in the 1968 edit, with the Island of Misfit Toys finale in the 1965 alternate credits in place of the original end credits. In 1998, the special was re-released on VHS by Sony Wonder under the license of Gold Pictures Family Entertainment. In 1999, the special was released for the first time on DVD by the two companies. In 2010, the special was released for the first time on Blu-ray by Vendina Entertainment.
Vivendi?
Huh?
Vivendi?
Vivendi. That sounds better. Vivendi. This edit has been made available in original color form by former rights holder Classic Media. which in 2012 became part of DreamWorks Classic Division, DreamWorks Animation, and finally in 2018 as a part of Universal Pictures. On November 4th, 2014, they re-released the special for the 50th anniversary on Blu-ray and DVD. The same 50th anniversary Blu-ray was released with an exclusive book story, which was exclusive to Walmart through Universal Pictures Home Entertainment, re-released the special again on DVD and Blu-ray in 2018. So going into sequels, and there's a lot of sequels. All right, so Rankin Bass did numerous sequels made by the same studio. Rudolph's Shiny New Year in 1979, which originally aired on ABC and is now available both on ABC and Freeform. Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. That makes no sense. In 1979, this was a full-length special paired with Rudolph with song inspired by Frosty the Snowman. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of Misfits in 2001, a direct-to-video computer animated computer film released by the team that produced an unaltered Rudolph movie in 1998. Rather, Rankin Bass or any company that was involved with this production. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer 4D attraction in 2016, a 10-minute stop-motion story adaptation in the form of a 4D movie in SimX Ultra, produced by Bend Image Lab and directed by Chell White. The final one was TEAM, as in Team Rudolph, and the Reindeer Games in 2018. A short adaptation of the book of the same name was featured in the original 2018 Blu-ray release of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay.
So that is all the sequels that this movie has had. That's a lot of sequels. Well, granted, it's not Land Before Time, but we're close.
Yeah. Only other one of these I watched was Rudolph's Shiny New Year, because that was one I had on a bootleg VHS.
Ah, gotcha. So that is all I have for info and stuff.
All right, let's jump into the summary then.
Go for it.
Donner, Santa's lead reindeer, and his wife have a new fawn named Rudolph. They are surprised to find out that he was born with a glowing red nose. Donner attempts to first cover Rudolph's nose with mud, and then later uses a fake nose, so Rudolph will fit in with the other reindeer. The following spring, Rudolph goes out for the reindeer games, where the new fawns learn to fly and are scouted by Santa for future sleigh duty. Rudolph meets a doe named Clarice, who tells him he is cute, making Rudolph fly. When he celebrates with the other bucks, Rudolph's fake nose pops off, causing the other reindeer to mock him and Coach Comet to expel him. Rudolph meets and joins Hermie, a misfit elf who left Santa's workshop because he wants to be a dentist, and Yukon Cornelius, a prospector who has spent his life searching for silver and gold. After escaping the abominable snow monster, all three land on the island of misfit toys. It is a place where unloved and unwanted toys reside with their ruler, a winged lion named King Moonracer, who brings the toys to the island until he can find homes and children who will love them. The king allows them to stay one night on the island and asks them to tell Santa to find homes for them. Rudolph flees on his own, worried that his nose will endanger his friends. Time passes, and Rudolph, now a young stag, returns home to find his parents and Clarice have been searching for him. He then travels to the Abominable's cave, where they are being held captive. Rudolph attempts to rescue Clarice until the monster knocks him down with a stalagmite. Hermie and Yukon eventually show up with a plan to help out Rudolph. Hermie lures the monster out of the cave by imitating the sound of a pig and pulls out the Abominable's teeth after Yukon knocks him out. Yukon drives his toothless monster back over a cliff and falls with it. Rudolph, Hermie, Clarice, and the Donners return home where everybody apologizes to them. Yukon returns with the tamed Abominable, now trained to trim a Christmas tree, explaining that the monster's bouncing ability saved both of their lives. Christmas Eve comes, and while everyone is celebrating, Santa announces that a big snowstorm is approaching, forcing them to cancel Christmas. Blinded by Rudolph's bright nose, he changes his mind and asks Rudolph to lead the sleigh. Rudolph accepts, and their first stop is the island of Misfit Toys, where Santa delivers the toys to children. Getting into the trivia for this. Copies of both the Santa and Rudolph puppets were found in storage in the attic of a woman that used to work for Rankin Bass. The puppets were in rather poor condition. Santa was missing his eyebrows and half his mustache, and his legs were broken. Apparently, he must have had a wrong turn with the mob. And Rudolph's iconic nose was missing and replaced with red wax. But amazingly, survived being stored in a hot attic since the late 1960s. They have since been restored by Screen Novelties to their former glory and now travel the country to various trade shows and conventions. In the original TV version of the show, Rudolph, Hermie the Elf, and Yukon Cornelius visit the island of Misfit Toys and promise to help them, but the Misfits are never seen again, only mentioned as Santa's first stop before he flies off in his sleigh. After it was shown, the producers were inundated with letters from children complaining that nothing had been done to help the Misfit Toys. In response, Rankin Bass produced a new short scene at the end of the show in which Santa and his reindeer, led by Rudolph, land on the island and pick up all the toys to find homes for them. This scene became a part of the standard version of the show running during the holidays. Although the animations were filmed in Japan, the entire soundtrack for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was recorded in a studio near Yonge Street in Toronto, Ontario. Most of the singing and speaking cast were Canadian. When Yukon Cornelius throws his pickaxe into the ground and takes it out and licks it, he's checking neither for gold nor silver. The original concept for the special stated that Yukon was, in fact, searching for the elusive peppermint mine, which he does eventually find. The scene has since been restored, starting with the 1998 home video VHS release. The actor who voiced Comet is often mistaken for Don Adams. Now, do you know who Don Adams is?
The name sounds familiar.
He is most famous for playing the character of Maxwell Smart on the old 60s, the old sitcom Get Smart.
Okay, yeah.
But we, as animation nerds, probably know him better as Inspector Gadget.
Oh, okay.
Because he was also the voice of Inspector Gadget.
Right.
In reality, this is actually Paul Kligman doing a Don Adams impersonation.
Oh, okay.
For Comet. Yukon Cornelius says stalwart sled dogs include a Cocker Spaniel, a Poodle, a Saint Bernard, a Collie, and a Dachshund.
Interesting sled team.
In 1979, the We Are Santa's Elves number was cut entirely from the special for reasons unknown, but it was restored in the 1980s.
Couldn't they just keep it out?
Yeah. Hermie is the only elf without pointed ears. He's also the only male elf with hair on top of his head, as well as eyes that dilate.
Because he's special.
He was the special puppet. While most of the elves look identical, one very distinct elf that stands out amongst the rest is a tall elf with glasses. He appears subsequently in ads for General Electric during TV broadcasts of the special. It wasn't until 2001, when in Rudolph and the Island of Misfit Toys, that his name was revealed to be Hank. Although Sam the Snowman's face resembles singer-actor Burl Ives, who provided the voice for the character, he was actually designed to look like the writer of the special, Romeo Muller. When the film was first released in 1964, the technology of using the articulated metal armature inside the figures was considered so amazing that TV Guide devoted 4 pages to the story. They failed to mention that this new technology had been pioneered 31 years before, most prominently inside the gorilla King Kong.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, did they do that in King Kong?
Yeah, they did. The reindeer, Rudolph, was actually created for Montgomery Ward's department stores by employee Robert May in 1939 as part of an advertising campaign. At the ending, when the Misfit Toys are handed umbrellas by an elf so they could float down from Santa's sleigh, in a misunderstanding, the bird who only swims doesn't get one. This was likely meant to indicate the bird somehow gained the ability to fly after being picked up by Santa. IMDb trivia is where I get a lot of this stuff, and I call shenanigans on that post and some well-meaning person feeling sorry for the bird that swims. Due to the Roman numeral error in the copyright notice, it reads 1164 instead of 1964. The original elements of this film are considered public domain. The songs and story of the film is based on are independently copyrighted. And that is why spell check matters, folks. The film has been jokingly criticized in years after its release as a story about how people are jerks to you until they realize you're useful to them. But in the movie, most of the main characters do feel remorse for the way they treated Rudolph and go and try to find him before they discover his hidden usefulness to Santa.
Kind of.
We'll get more on that in a minute.
Yeah, kind of.
Sam the Snowman's songs and narration were originally intended for Yukon Cornelius. Larry D. Mann had even recorded all the songs as Yukon Cornelius prior to filming. However, Burl Ives was brought on as Sam the Snowman at the last minute to narrate the special and give it the full power that would help sell it to networks. The Larry D. Mann recordings of the songs and narration still exist. However, they are in the hands of a private collector.
Oh.
Which means we'll never see them.
Probably.
Or hear them, technically.
Probably.
Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, which is another song by Johnny Marks, can be heard in the underscore where Donner is teaching Rudolph about being a reindeer. This happens before the abominable snowman first appears within the scene, where Rudolph first meets Fireball. Also, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, which is yet another song by Johnny Marks, technically the music, not the words. The words are written by Ralph Waldo Emerson, the poet. Can be heard in the underscore in the very first scene after Sam the Snowman introduces himself. Janice Orenstein was only 15 years old when she provided the voice of Clarice. According to recording engineer Bill Giles, she managed to nail the song There's Always Tomorrow in just one take.
Wow.
And while multiple takes were recorded afterwards, the first take was the one used in the final film. After this special, Orenstein retired from acting, and the rest of her career was spent performing opera. The original 1964 airing of the special did not feature the Rankin Bass Presents slide at the beginning due to it being part of the General Electric Fantasy Hour. This slide was later added to acknowledge the growing success of the Rankin Bass Company. Last but not least, Dolly is the only misfit toy in the special with no stated reason for being considered a misfit. Why do you think that Arthur Rankin Jr. has since confirmed it was? Because he has confirmed why she was a misfit.
Miscolored dress?
No. I'll give you a hint. In Toy Story 2, the character of, what is her name? Her, the one on the cover. I'm trying to look up the back, find her name. The girl
I know. Jessie.
Jessie technically has the same issue.
She was abandoned?
She has psychological issues from being abandoned by her former owner.
Wow. Okay.
That is the most dark thing I think you can say connected to this special. Outside of the fish who swims not being given an umbrella. The fish who swims. The bird who swims.
The bird who swims. Thank you. I mean, like, it's normal for a fish to swim.
Yeah, but the bird who only swims, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, what is your first like for this film?
My first like, it is a animation treasure when it comes to what it did, when it comes to stop motion, when it comes to animation, when it comes to just the powerhouse of this film, of this short, when it comes to just the like overall presence, be like it's something that most people know. and you think Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you think of either the song or you think of the movie, and it's got that that iconic presence as a film that be like everyone's gonna know, and it is very well. It's treasured. It's like I said, like like my opening salvo. It's a treasured film or a treasured short that I enjoy what I enjoy. I appreciate what this film did when it comes to the field of animation, the film of stop motion. Granted, is it the best? No. But is it iconic? Yes. So yes, it is a classic treasure when it comes to what it did for the industry as a whole. That's my number one.
My first like for this, when we every once in a while we do review movies that are historically important for animation, and I think this is one of those.
Agreed.
Granted, there are a couple others that were doing stop motion before this, especially when in use in the live action films, but this was able to produce really good stop motion animation on a television show budget, which is not going to be tremendously huge.
Yeah.
You have to remember where other stop motion things were being made at this point. You had stuff like okay, King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay.
They used suitmation for that entire production.
Yes.
Despite the fact they had originally intended to animate King Kong in stop motion. Because that's how he was originally animated back in the thing. They decided against it because it was too expensive.
I can imagine. For
a movie that is one of the original that features the two biggest monsters in cinema fighting each other.
Yeah. Which, pardon me, I really wish they would have gone with stop motion instead of this really weird looking monkey.
The less said about King Kong's face in that film, the better. So yeah, like I said, that was too expensive for a movie.
Yes.
And yet that was, I think, just a couple years before this one, or around the same time.
Yeah.
And they were, granted, the animation was done in Japan, which means probably, I don't know which production company in Japan actually did the animation, but I assume that Toho might have been close by, or they had the same connections that Toho did. Toho didn't want to do it for King Kong versus Godzilla, but they were able to do it on probably a lot smaller budget.
Yeah.
Than King Kong versus Godzilla would have had. So, and the animation, while it's a little clunky, even for stop motion of this era, it's actually pretty decent for what it is. I mean, granted, we don't get to see stop motion a lot. Stop motion is a form of animation that has never really taken off except in niche companies.
Exactly.
After, when, especially once computer animation started taking over. So I think this is a very good example of what stop motion animation can be, what it can do. It tells a good 45-minute story. Granted, there's some story issues, but I'm not going to blame that on the animators. Especially after reading that trivia, how it seems like they were mixing stuff up almost to the last minute to get all this done, including filming a scene after the thing had already been made for later broadcasts. Yeah, I mean, it's just for what this is a historical piece of film that really, even if you hate Christmas, even if you are the Grinch, but you like animation and you want to see you want to see what's important historically, you got to watch this film because it's got issues, but it's really well animated for its time.
Agreed.
What's your second like?
My second like, speaking of animation, as most of as our listeners and those who watch our videos, we have done quite a few stop motion through Leica animation, and like the classics of
Kubo and the Two Strings,
Coraline, which is I
Coraline.
love Coraline to death.
Yes, we've also done Corpse Bride, which was not Leica; it was a different company, and then of course Nightmare Before Christmas,
which is prior to being forming into Leica.
Yes,
so be like if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, which I love to do. There's a lot of reverence and a lot of reference to this special that a lot of people grew up watching and is like, oh my gosh, I want to do that for a living. And the animation style, even though it's kind of clunky, like Drew said, like it is so iconic. It is so revered in the animation world that it is being spoofed. It is being homaged, is being loved, and
the entire art direction for the North Pole scenes in Elf is based on this, including the costumes for the elves.
That makes sense. I haven't seen Elf, but
give it a shot one day.
Oh, okay, if I get past Will Ferrell, we're good.
Elf is one of the 2 Will Ferrell movies I actually like.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Though admittedly, some of that is Zooey Deschanel. But beside the point.
Oh, okay. But just the animation in this movie, in this short, I want to call it a show, but it's not a short.
It's special.
It's special. It's a special. This is so well done for the budget it had, and it was a television special. They're gonna, like you brought up the idea that they wouldn't do King Kong versus Godzilla in stop motion because it was too expensive.
Yeah.
And to see the amount of detail they did, now granted, you can definitely tell that it was cheap, but just the way they were able to do this film on a shoestring budget is so remarkable that you have to give it, props for what it was. And a part of me really wants to see King Kong versus Godzilla in stop motion now, because that would be freaking epic.
Well, they were only going to use it for King Kong.
Really?
Which brings me a lot of questions to my mind.
Yeah.
How are you going to have suit-motion Godzilla and stop-motion King Kong interact in the same scene?
That's going to be like, is he going to be like, you have to do forced perspective on everything?
You'd have to. So, yeah.
Yep.
That was your second like?
Yeah, that's my second.
My second like for this film is I really do like the design on Rudolph. In my mind, when we were thinking, getting ready to watch this, I was thinking they'd have one puppet throughout the entire thing be Rudolph. Maybe they'd go in and, show him be older at some point. Maybe they'd put antlers on him. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I've forgotten about this thing for years, for the most part, because this film's not on my list of Christmas classics to watch on a regular basis.
Same.
I actually like how we got essentially 3 different models of Rudolph. Baby, fawn, young buck, and then full buck, I guess. And they all look very well done. They're very well sculpted. Even with the fake nose over the light bulb, that even looks good. Now, granted, it looks like he's got a big nose, but it's also supposed to look like a fake nose.
Yeah.
The only real issue I have, and this is probably going to sound a little like heresy.
Okay.
The red nose is looks too much like a light bulb.
It does.
It's like, couldn't you have found a better way to, when he wasn't lit, for it to just look like a nose like everybody else's, just red? And then when you had to have it light up, then you switch it out for the bulb? I would have preferred that, I think.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's just a minor little quibble. I really do like the way it was designed all the way through. They made both his real nose and fake nosed iterations look good. And there's animation in all three forms, even because it's three different models, because these three different heights.
Yeah.
It's not obvious at first when you're watching it, but yeah, it is definitely three different heights on this character. And they all look good, and they all look like who the character's supposed to be. So yeah, I like the design on Rudolph. That's my second like. What's your third?
My third like, it's really what this special did. What he did for what would become Rankin Bass would be like, you would get the Hobbit, you would get Frosty the Snowman, like what this one short did.
You're just happy it eventually leads to Thundercats.
Oh yes. Very much so.
I mean, granted, all those other things you probably enjoy too, because Frosty the Snowman is actually very good 2D animated short. That we will probably need to review sometime.
It is, agreed.
But
this is what be like Rankin Bass had done, or as what they were before they became Rankin Bass. I keep wanting to say Franken Bass, but Rankin Bass were be like they did commercials and they did this. And then that just catapulted them for years and years and years to do more and more shorts, more animations that you would get into the Hobbit, and you are not the Hobbit. You get into the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes,
you get the
Return of the King.
Return of the King, and I haven't seen those yet. I want to. We're going to get around to them eventually. And then you get into they did cartoons. They did Thundercats. They did they did Silverhawks. They did all these amazing things, like going into like it's amazing that one short, that one TV special can catapult one studio into doing so many amazing things that impacts the industry, the world of animation so well, that all thanks to a red-nosed reindeer that we got so many amazing things out of it and through Rankin Bass. So I really appreciate the film for what it was able to allow Rankin Bass to do as a studio. And yeah, I am truly grateful, because there again, growing up, I loved Thundercats, and that inspired me artistically. And so in a way, I can thank Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in a roundabout way.
All right.
So that's my number 3.
My third like for this is, of all things, the snow.
Okay.
Snow is a hard thing to pull off in stop motion. Like snow is hard to pull off in anything but 2D animation, if we're being honest. And of course, that's actually what they did here for a lot of the flurry effects, is it's literally just animated snow. But I think it was handled very well. But on top of that, I don't know about you, but when I watched this, I had a little bit of flashbacks to earlier this week.
Okay.
When they were showing all the newspapers talking about the big snowstorm coming in, especially, or maybe 2 years ago. I go, wow, we really picked the right week to do this movie. I didn't even know about this newspaper segment. And that's how they lead into, Sam the Snowman talking about how, I remember how things always used to be, and how that one big snowstorm, and how we wouldn't have gotten off if we didn't have Rudolph there. Oh, you don't know who I'm talking about, Rudolph. Now I'm going to sing the song where I ask you if you recall who Rudolph is, despite the fact you just told me you don't know who Rudolph is. But I mean, that lead in, plus the actual snow effects, plus the snow on the ground in Los, especially like where the tracks and like the tracks on Sam makes himself, where all of that I thought was that's a lot of stuff they didn't have to do to make look right. It's a lot of extra fluff that if they had just had Sam slide across and he not push little snowflakes aside to cause a trail, no one would have batted an eye.
Right.
No one would have batted an eye if, when the abominable snowman crashed across the set, that he left snow prints.
Yeah.
If it had remained solid, no one would have cared, especially at this time. It would have been fine with the art style. But no, just that little extra care to make sure that they're with snow trails for every character throughout pretty much every scene.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And you wouldn't have had that without newspapers telling you about a snowstorm coming in.
Yeah. Which is a nice lead into the movie.
Yes. So yeah, snow, believe it or not, is my third like for this.
All right.
So now we have dislikes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, rip into it
Okay.
with your first dislike.
My first dislike. All I gotta say is poor Rudolph. Poor Rudolph. Be like he's born with an abnormality. Like he's like immediately he's ostracized by his father because he's not a traditional reindeer. And then be like there's so many like I want to say oxymorons throughout this entire film over poor Rudolph. Because Rudolph be like he's forced to wear a fake nose. Because it'd be like he can't be seen because it'll bring shame to his family. It's like no dad, you're just embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so Santa, and so
I still don't understand why when his fake nose pops off during the reindeer games, why Comet says we can't have a freak like you on the stage. It's like it's just a nose.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect how he performs.
Yeah.
In standard weather. So what are you worried about? He was still the first guy who flew among this pack.
Yeah.
It's because it was because of a girl, but
yeah. Well, you get excited for a girl. Let's just
I understand exactly why Rudolph flew at that point. He was already on cloud 9 and just had to get his body up there.
Yep. True. So I mean, like it's like he like this girl gets his attention. What's her name? Clarice. I think it was aging Clarice, but
that's why I keep saying Clarice because I don't think they said it quite the way I'm saying it, but it was still Clarice.
Yeah, it's Clarice.
But of course, I'm going Clarice.
Yeah, fava beans.
Fava beans, yes.
But it's like this
boy, we're putting a whole new spin on.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. No, let's not go there because that just to me it's a funny scene in my head. I don't want to draw it. But be like poor Rudolph, be like he a girl likes him. A girl likes him. And then instantly, because he does so well, his little fake nose pops off. And then everybody starts ostracizing the kid.
Yes.
Because be like, oh, he's a freak. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's this. Be like, I can understand in some way because I have Tourette's disorder. I bark like a dog. Like you haven't heard it on the podcast yet, but eventually you will. I
hope.
I hope too, because it's always fun. Because there again, I can make fun of my condition. I know there's a lot of people who have Tourette's. They
bear in mind
they're literally ostracized.
Bear in mind, anytime I mess with Jacob about his Tourette's or even about anything, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have his permission.
Right.
And granted, I always am a little worried because I'm always looking at him in the video thinking, have I taken it a step too far? Because I know there has to be a step too far.
Yeah, I've had people to do that, and I called them on. It's like, hey, that's not cool. Don't do that.
Right.
But I'm grateful that you're just more like it's cool because I know you're not gonna push it way over that edge.
No, I overthink things too much because I grant don't have the problems you got. But I've been ostracized myself, so I know what it's like to be made fun of.
Yeah, exactly. We all have in some capacity. Be like, we're like, if you're
at least you didn't have people calling you Drew Carey.
True. But there can be like, if you're
where Mimi is. Anyways,
so there again, be like, if you're kind of a nerd or something like that, you've been ostracized before, and so you can in a way kind of relate to Rudolph, but it just gets worse throughout this entire film. It's like he follows I want to be a dentist kind of character.
I want to be a dentist.
I want to be a dentist.
I don't like painting toys.
I'm special character. Either or. I'll get to his stupid little blonde hair in a moment. But oh my gosh, but he really Griff decides to follow this knucklehead and gets into more trouble. And Rudolph now has a complex that now, because he thinks that my nose is causing the abominable snowman to follow them, even though his nose lights up once.
Yeah.
And now he's got this complex that it's all my fault because everybody has been picking on me. And it's just like, like even the beginning where like Santa was like, oh, it's perfectly fine. But then as a young teenager, his nose pops off, and then Santa's like, it's like, oh, we can't have that kind of thing in our team, and like ostracizes his father and everything because his son has a red nose. And then it's just more like he comes back and everybody's still picking on him because he has a red nose. I'm like, okay, whatever. And be like, he finally comes back, he's the hero of the day, and it's still be like,
he ain't the hero of the day yet because he hadn't done what the only thing he's known for outside of this special, and that's lead the sleigh, the reindeer through that horrible snowstorm.
Exactly.
And he just happened to get everyone back home. That's the only really defense I can have for these people, is that they at least do feel remorse after the fact.
They do. And
so at least there's that.
Yeah, but then it goes into, was like, even if you didn't have that snowstorm, I guarantee they wouldn't use Rudolph. But ever since Rudolph was useful in this moment, that now be like, oh, we got this massive snowstorm, and like, it's like, oh, you can be useful to me in some capacity. Because there again, be like, I think you stated it once, people like picking at the film. It's like, it's just how terrible people can be to each other.
Yeah.
And it's true in this film all the stinking time. It's like, yeah, Mr. I want to be a dentist, like, because he wants to shuck off his own responsibility and be like, oh, I'm going to be a dentist, whatever. And Rudolph being ostracized because he's different, because we're all different in some capacity or form. But it's just this idea that people can be cruel, incredibly cruel. And like,
because people don't know what to do with the different.
Yeah, exactly. And that I love it. Like, you go into scripture, and that Christ didn't come to the wealthy. He didn't come to the people who had prestige, or the Pharisees or Sadducees.
He went to the misfits.
He went to the misfits. He went to the poor, the needy, the prostitutes, the
people no one wanted to give any amount of time to, because it would make them ceremonially unclean.
Exactly. Went to lepers, not leopards.
Yeah.
Went to the unclean and shared the good news with them, healed them from their abnormalities. And that's the one thing that Christ be like, it's like, that's what we're called to do. We are called to go to the poor and the needy and the widow and the orphan and those who are ostracized from the rest of the world. And I recently, or I'm doing a study in James where it's more it'd be like, if you have faith without works, it's dead.
Yeah.
And so it's that idea of we go out and we take care of those who are less fortunate than us, and be like, are we sharing our faith? Are we doing stuff? Are we active in our faith? And that kind of convicted me, like the first time I did this study. And that kind of convicted me in a way that do we go out, and do we go and is our faith being motivated by action? Is what are we doing in our faith as Christians? If you're a Christian listening to this, what are we doing? What are we doing to that? Is our faith being poured out into actions towards others? And because God himself, like, he was the one who went, and like, he was like I said, he went towards misfits. And that's kind of like, that's, and it kind of makes you change your perspective on things. And like, what are you doing, instead of tearing people down because they're different than you? Instead of be like, why don't you try helping that person, because someone who's a little different than you might be the person you need in your life that could change something that's working, like God's working in your heart. So think about that.
Man, the trains are active tonight.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But my first dislike is like I kind of rounded it into more of what what Christ calls us to do is go and go help the misfits.
Now let me ask you this question.
What's that?
While it is something you dislike about the film,
yes,
as an element of the story, does it work?
As an element for the story, it does work in a way.
I only ask because we both in the past we both have mentioned things that we didn't like that the story actually needed. So it's actually a good thing that we didn't like it because obviously you're not supposed to like the fact that Rudolph is mistreated.
Exactly.
Or for that matter, a Blondie boy or any of the misfit toys.
Yeah,
you're supposed to feel sorry for these guys,
of course.
and you're rooting for everything to be set right.
Yeah.
The fact that all these people are jerks to them has to happen for the story to actually have any agency.
Agreed.
So is it something you don't like because you hate that had to happen, or it wasn't done well, like a quality of the story issue?
I would say be like quality story. No, I think it was just like how the characters were mistreated, especially Rudolph. And there again, we're putting in context was the 1960s and trying to put context there and not trying to shame those people for what they did in the 60s because that's what they did in the 60s.
Yeah.
But I just be like you
hate that they did it, but it makes sense for the purpose of the story.
It does make sense for the story.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's mostly what I'm getting at.
Exactly.
Okay. My first dislike is the Abominable Snowman coming back at the end.
Oh gosh, ow. That's all I hear is ow.
First off, granted, it would really stink not for Yukon Cornelius not to make it back because he's a hero character.
Yeah.
And while he's not the greatest character, I think, in the story, he is someone, he does sacrifice himself as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
The problem is not that they brought Yukon Cornelius back at the end and came up with a silly reason for how he survived. It's the fact that not only did he come back, but the Abominable Snow Monster did too, and now the Abominable Snow Monster is friendly. For no apparent reason. Actually, even worse, because he took his teeth out of his head and now he's friendly.
Oh.
It's like, how does he should be angrier now than he was before you pulled his teeth, Cornelius?
No, it wasn't even Cornelius.
Oh no, it wasn't Cornelius. It was it was Blondie. I can't think of his name.
Blondie. Blondie.
It was the dentist. I'm like, and that somehow him losing all his teeth and then falling off a cliff made him tame enough to put a star on top of a tree.
That makes no sense.
Could you at least have the decency, if you're going to do this, to say, we misunderstood him like we misunderstood everybody else in this short?
That makes sense.
About how this person could be helpful.
Right.
How they are a part of our community. Even though they didn't seem to fit into the community before.
True.
But no. He falls off a cliff, gets a concussion, I assume, and now he's friendly. No, he should be raspberry soup at the bottom of that cliff is what he should be. And Yukon Cornelius somehow barely survived the fall because the Abominable Snowman took the force of the fall for him. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
But that's too gruesome and dark for the children.
Minus the doll's backstory.
They never specifically said that during the course of the film.
True.
That being said, the bird who swims. Anywho.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really like how they bring the Abominable Snow Monster back for the end of this.
I agree.
After everything, before Rudolph goes and takes his flight. What's your second dislike?
My second dislike is you mentioned a scene that had been removed, then was added back into the story, and it's like, why in the world was this song even added? What I'm talking about, the elves singing to
We are Santa's elves.
I'm like, what the heck? Okay, so let me ask you.
We are Santa's elves.
Well, okay,
I hate this song.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
the worst song in the
It
whole
is
thing.
bad. It is terrible. So what is the function of an elf? To make toys, right?
In this context, yes.
Yes. So
Bear in mind, these are not Tolkien elves. These are fairy elves.
Yeah, fairy elves.
There's a difference. I just want to be that, but that's how Santa's elves
Christmas
are always done.
elves.
Is they're essentially based off of the fairy elf.
Yeah. So like I completely agree with you. The song is horrendous. It's just like I understand why Santa is like
I'm with
like
Santa.
irritated. Why in the world is this guy singing? You're supposed to be building toys and getting ready for Christmas to arrive and get the toys ready to ship out to the kids, and be like practice. The head elf
practice.
says elf practice. Why are you practicing in front of Santa?
Well, it would have. I assume
That makes no sense.
That whole thing doesn't make sense at all. I mean, you want to write a song for the elves to sing while they're working?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You don't need to split that into soprano, alto, tenor, bass.
Yes,
that is not a choir song. That is something like someone starts singing it and everyone joins in because they know the melody.
Yeah.
And then you write the dumbest song that ever existed.
One of them.
We'll get more onto the other songs here in a minute.
Mm.
But I do understand how one tenor being missing could throw the entire tenor section off.
Which it didn't sound bad at all.
No, because there wasn't a missing tenor in the actual recording of the song.
Which is irritating. It's like,
and it's like, bad. I have opinions.
Yeah, same here. That was probably like it's like, okay, we're going on the click. Hold on, let me find his name. I want to keep calling it Blondie.
It's Hermes,
yeah,
I think.
Hermes is complaining because he doesn't want to do his job. He wants to
wants to be a dentist.
He wants to be a dentist because he's read a book. And so be like his boss comes back in and be like, you missed elf practice.
Why weren't you at elf practice, Hermes? Because I was working on this doll's teeth. We don't make dolls that chew. That would be dangerous and would get us sued. Would get us sued.
Come on, Hermie.
We don't need Bite Me Elmo.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, oh my gosh. This was like I never seen this scene before, and I was like realizing they removed it. I wonder why.
Stupid
It's
scene.
so stupid. Like even Santa thinks it's the dumbest thing ever. Be like, oh, I've got a lot of obligations. Bye.
Yes.
And Mrs. Claus is being.
I need to go check on the reindeer because we are going to be needing new people on the team very soon. I really don't care about the people making the toys.
Mm-hmm. As long as you do your job.
They are not on my direct. My life does not depend on whether or not these elves can sing this one song. It does depend on whether the new reindeer can learn how to fly.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So yes, this entire scene was pointless, and I see why they were removed in the first place. But then all of a sudden they decided they bring it back. This back to it's supposed to be a practice, but why are you practicing in front of Santa?
I think it would be like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, like a rehearsal.
So like
if they would have called it that instead of a practice,
this is not the actual performance. This is maybe there's a talent show and these elves are representing Santa Claus and Santa Claus couldn't care less.
Maybe
that's why Santa had to be there because I don't know. I'm guessing here.
Mm-hmm.
The scene makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense
other than to show Hermes missing,
which I keep thinking good
because he doesn't. We don't need an elf dentist.
Yeah,
you're sitting on top of a peppermint mine. Guess what? You're gonna. The teeth aren't going to be in good shape no matter how many dentists you have up there. Besides, they're magic elves. How bad can their teeth really be?
That is true.
Anyways,
so yeah, that entire scene where the elves sing for some weird reason makes no sense. And I kind of applaud whoever thought to take it out originally, but then in 1998 they brought it back in. Why? It makes no sense. But you gotta put like
You got to get that runtime in.
It was originally in there, so you gotta put it back.
It's probably taken out because the runtime was going too long.
Yeah, probably.
And they put it back in because we have to have the original.
Yeah. So either or, be like, at least they're not like Disney and be like, oh, we're gonna remove this movie because it's got smoking.
Technically, the only movie Disney has removed and it made impossible to watch is the one with racial tensions in it.
Yeah.
Technically, the smoking ones, they just put a warning that says, "Hey, there's smoking in this. Don't watch, kids."
Yeah.
We don't want to promote smoking.
Yeah. Don't even be like that. Like we might be doing something about that movie
Eventually.
Anywho, yeah. So that was my second dislike. That entire scene was stupid. You're supposed to be making toys, not choir practice.
You got to do something in your off time.
That is true.
That's probably just beta shift. Gamma shift has got to take over at some point, and before you go to sleep, you know what? After you work 8 hours, you got to do something to wind down at the end of the day.
That's true.
So that's why you would have maybe
They're lower deckers.
Yes, the elves are lower. That's why I said beta shift.
Yeah. That's when you said that, I was like, oh, there we go.
They're lower deckers.
They're lower deckers. What is your second dislike?
Every song but the classic Christmas songs. Rudolph is fine.
Yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that song is fine. Silver and Gold, that's fine. There was a third one in there. I can't remember what it is. They sang at the end. That was a more traditional Christmas song. I can't think of what it is. Oh, Have a Holly Jolly Christmas.
Yeah.
Those songs are fine.
Yeah.
Every other song in this thing is, well, two things. It's either A, unmemorable for a good reason, or B, I can't understand what anyone's saying. Granted, that song that that Clarice sings, if that little girl was able to pull that song off in one take, great for her. Problem is, in the years since this has aired, the sound in this has deteriorated so much, I can't make out what you're saying.
True.
And that's just an age problem. I can kind of let that go for the most part. But every song in this, besides Have a Holly Jolly Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Silver and Gold,
almost
not worth being in the thing. Now,
Yeah,
granted, I think all three of the, outside of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I think those three songs were written for this movie.
They were.
Granted. But there's a reason those two were able to make it out of, to become Christmas song classics to be played on the radio, and why the others weren't.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, all of the bad Christmas songs that didn't need to be in this. Honestly, I don't think this needed to be a musical half the time.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Third dislike, sir.
Third dislike.
Hermie?
More than Hermie. Oh my gosh.
Was it I don't know.
Hermie plus the extremely convenient plot points. Now, Grant, I understand this is a kids movie. I totally get it.
But we are both on the opinion that being a kids movie is not an excuse for a poor decision.
Exactly. It's like, why do all of the characters all of a sudden have to be in the exact same place at the exact same time? Be like, it's
because we only had 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
And we didn't have time to show how they met back up in the cave of the snow monster.
Yeah. Be like,
that's the only reason.
What? Okay.
Especially after they went to so much trouble to explain why Clarice and Mrs. Donner.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Didn't leave with Donner.
Oh my gosh. So I want to get into that real fast. It's like not even part of my likes or dislikes.
Yes.
It's just, I see that scene. It's where Donner
this is man's work.
This is man's work. He leaves the scene.
And 3 seconds later, they go too. It's like we knew they were going to happen. And they go to all that trouble.
Yeah.
To explain, to show them leaving at separate times for there to be no intervening scene to see how they meet back up.
Yeah. And like
a year later.
Yeah, almost like a year later, like Rudolph finally shows up and they've been gone that entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Clarice has grown in this time.
Yeah, Clarice is growing up by this point. And then it's more like, oh, they've been in the Abominable Snowman's cave the entire time. Or they showed up there all of a sudden.
They happen to be there at the end. It's like, okay, what did you eat over this course of this time? What did Rudolph eat, for crying out? Because my understanding is these deer would have been eating grass.
Yeah, and
which the real reindeer can do this, because even in Siberia and Russia, where these reindeer, where the concept of the reindeer came from for the Santa Claus myth, there was foliage they could eat.
Yeah.
There is no foliage throughout this entire film. There is not a tree.
No.
Except for the Christmas trees around Christmas Village.
Because, of course, you can't eat those.
Well, maybe eat the tinsel.
Maybe eat the tinsel. Be like, well, tinsel will kill a reindeer. Let's say that.
Magic tinsel.
A magic tinsel.
The Christmas trees grow with the ornaments on them.
Oh,
those are that's biological tinsel.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
We go there. We're perfectly fine. But it's just like,
you're not supposed to be putting as much thought into this as we are.
Yeah, but we do that anyway. Oh my! It's just like, it's like the just plot contrivances all over the place. I'm like, okay, they all show up at the same time, and like, oh my gosh, the poor Abominable Snowman, like he's just trying to get a snack, he's trying to get a meal, and be like, and then all of a sudden be like, Cornelius thinks to be like, oh, he really likes pigs. Where did we see a pig in this movie?
There was no boars.
There were no boars.
Not even on the island of Misfit Toys was there a piggy bank without a hole.
True.
I'm just saying.
True. So, and then it's like, oh, here's be like, and oh, here's another thing. So Cornelius says that when they cross into the water, that the Abominable Snowman he only sinks.
So why are they afraid the Abominable Snowman made it to the island of Misfit Toys? He can't get there.
He can't get there. And here's another thing.
It's on an island. It's not connected to everything else.
So they're so scared that the Abominable Snowman is going to show up that
Rudolph runs away. So that the Abominable Snowman, because apparently the Abominable is following his nose.
Yeah, apparently, which doesn't work for the story.
The Abominable Snowman is not Toucan Sam.
And oh my gosh. And
I'm just saying what we're all thinking.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like the story, like the how they wrap the story up in a nice bow, and it's all nice and pretty, minus the snowman should still be raging because you pulled his freaking teeth out.
His mouth should be aching because we know for a fact that while Hermie was studying to be a dentist, he didn't have access to Novocaine.
That is true. And don't get me started on Hermie. Oh my gosh. Like, I understand, be like, I want to be a dentist. I don't want to do this. It's called your responsibility. Be like, we've all been part of teams, right?
Mm-hmm. We've all been forced to do stuff we don't want to do and wish we could do something else.
Yeah. Be like, learn this stuff in your own time, Hermie. But no, I'm going to go off on my own. I'm like, are you serious? You're going to go and endanger Rudolph as well, because Rudolph's just, he's actually getting tormented by people. You're just more like,
I don't want to be a toy maker. I want to fix people's teeth. Does anyone want a dentist up here?
No.
There is not a market for you, Hermie.
Yeah.
No amount of you wanting to be a dentist is going to make people come to you.
Exactly. Oh my!
Guess who people don't like going to?
The dentist.
Exactly.
But it's just like, oh my gosh,
Hermie here in a minute.
Hermie, oh my gosh, this idiotic character. Like he whines and complains because he wants to be a dentist, and he's only read a book. He has only read a book that tells him about dentistry.
Yes.
And so now he's fully convinced that he's a dentist. Now I could go into some serious political stuff with this or social commentary with this, but I'm not going to, because that would make it, one, not part of our show, two, way too long, and probably get people really mad at me. So I don't want that. So going forward, it's more like, Hermie, just please do your job, because you're responsible for painting these toys. That is your job. That is your responsibility. You can't flake off your responsibility because you want to become a dentist. You can go become a dentist on the side. Work on your responsibility, because that's what we're supposed to do as people, to be responsible for ourselves and not simply shrug it up because I want to go do this and you can't tell me what to do because I quit, kind of thing. I'm like, it's like this person complaining that he's working 8 hours at a job. I'm like, okay,
you have a job.
Yeah, you have a
happy
job.
about
You
that.
have to get a job.
You are getting a paycheck.
Exactly. But either
there, 2020 taught us, be happy you're still getting a paycheck.
Exactly. Anyways, it's just like, oh my gosh, this character drives me nuts.
Can I jump in on this? Because this is also my third dislike.
Go ahead.
Here's my problem with Hermie. In the years since this came out, Hollywood did this character better.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Remember how I mentioned earlier that there was another Christmas movie that took a lot of inspiration for its design work from this?
Okay.
That being the movie Elf?
Yes.
Will Ferrell is Hermie.
Really?
Basically. And the elf boss, that is basically his elf dad, which was played by what is his name? Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
Bob Newhart's the perfect person to play the live action version of the elf head elf. But the thing is, remember how I mentioned that Blondie as our Hermie? He's the only male elf with hair.
Yeah.
He's the only elf with rounded ears. And the only elf with, for lack of a better term, normal eyes. In fact, he's the only character in this with normal eyes.
Yeah.
Everyone else has just the iris, the pupil. The pupil, not the iris. Iris is the outside part. He actually has an iris while nobody else does, except for Rudolph and the other deer. Which tells me Hermie is not an elf. He can't be an elf. He doesn't look like an elf. He doesn't want to do elf things, which means he's not an elf. Now, granted, Will Ferrell did not want to be a dentist. He wanted to go find his real dad.
Yeah.
So, fair enough. And in that one, he went down to New York to find his real dad. And Peter Dinklage. He was an angry elf.
Oh my gosh.
You need to watch that movie.
Apparently.
But because even Sam the Snowman, in a sense, shows up in the film. But that movie, granted, 30, 40 years after the fact, does the character of Hermie a lot more justice.
Okay.
Because, yeah, granted, Will Ferrell's character actually did want to be, till he learned he wasn't an elf, was trying his best. He was a character who he was trying his best. He was really into the whole Santa Claus thing. He was more of an elf than the elves were in terms of, temperament and stuff. But but you look back and you look at Hermie, and it's like you said, Hermie doesn't want to be an elf.
No,
he wants to be a dentist in a land that has never had dentists before. Which makes me wonder, where did he get the stupid book? Perhaps it was picked up when perhaps he had it in his hand when he crawled into Santa's sack, but when Santa wasn't paying attention and got carried up here, and for some reason that meant Santa couldn't take him back home.
Apparently, he knew.
I don't know.
It would be interesting.
The character of Hermie is a weird character because he doesn't have the same. He's dressed like the other elves.
Agreed.
But other than that, he doesn't even look like an elf. Even Hank, as we learned his name was, the tall elf, looks like an elf.
Yeah, they're all the same.
They all have the same motif. But Hermie sticks out like a sore thumb. Maybe they were thinking misfit. I don't know. But he doesn't look like an elf. Because I don't think he is an elf. And that entire possible plot line is not even touched on, because the closest we get is, I want to be a dentist and I'm going to go hide in the snowbank till Rudolph sits on my head.
You're right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this your snowbank? Why, yes, Peter Parker. It is my snowbank. Go back to New York. Clip that, please. The character of Hermie is not. It's got a good concept. And granted, if they could have had more time to deal with Hermie, perhaps in his own special, and not cram him into Rudolph's, you could actually have a decent story there.
Agreed.
You wonder how I know this? The movie Elf exists. Guess who ain't an elf? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. He's not even carrying Santa's sleigh when Santa takes off with them. His dad's there, technically, but then they never say any of the other reindeers' names. But
true,
and they don't act like the reindeer can talk. But Hermie is not needed in this film, and he could have been given so much more room for us to actually care about this character in a separate special.
Yeah,
you could have him show up in here and make a pre-cameo appearance, but they didn't know they were making any more.
Yeah,
when they made this, they shoved him in here because we needed to fill 45 minutes.
Yeah, we needed,
and they didn't do a good job of filling out his character, because what do we know about Hermie? What is the only thing we know about Hermie? He wants to be a dentist. That's not character development.
No, it's not.
Yukon Cornelius had more character development than Hermie. Granted, he was supposed to be the original narrator, but c'est la vie. What is your rating for this film?
Oh gosh, it's so hard because like you find so many problems with the film, but then you look at the touchstones of what the film did to catapult claymation, animation,
stop motion.
Well, it was stop motion, not claymation, but it's claymation. Yeah. But
there's not any claymation in this.
Oh, okay.
It's all stop motion.
Well, stop motion. All right, we'll just stay with that.
Yeah,
stop motion. I am gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7. Like, it is an icon when it comes to animated classics. It did wonders for the stop motion industry. It catapulted a studio into what it became. The story itself hardly makes any sense. It has so many plot inconveniences, and Hermie makes no sense as a character. The ending of the story is so contrived, it's not even funny. But I am going to give the movie a 7 just because it is such an iconic movie, and I don't want to. Well, we'll get to eventually Snow White and Seven Dwarfs when we get there. But yeah,
it's on the list.
It's on the list.
I've been working on our season 5 list.
All right,
I've got some stuff on there.
All right. Well, how do you rank this?
I'm also giving it a 7. It's a classic of stop motion. It's definitely, for the historical value alone, it should be viewed at least once. It is a great Christmas classic for what it is, for the whole family to get together. It's not meant to be thought of as hard as we thought of it, to be honest. Granted, these are still issues I have because it is literally paper thin in terms of theme. Because about the only thing you can really say about this is making fun of people who are different than you is bad. I don't know of anyone who actively disagrees with this consciously, even if they act like they do sometimes. But yeah, it's a classic, and it's a good classic, a good thing to watch at Christmas, even though Santa is skinny throughout most of it.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I didn't get that, and plus, there's no way he put on that much food, that much fat in the day of. But beside the point. That is our thoughts on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And now we have another finale to do here at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Come on now and set sail for the future. Find the sky, back to the heart again. Oh, the love
I don't think I've ever mentioned this on here before, but do you realize how amazing it is that this silly little cartoon show that is only meant to be a streaming thing actually has a full orchestra doing the music every week?
Yeah.
I've not thought, I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's just, that is a thing you don't think about, because no other animated show do I know of actually has a full orchestra doing its music.
True.
Anyway, let's jump into this.
Yeah.
Trusted Sources, directed by Phil Mark Sagadraka and written by Ben M. Waller. In this episode, a visiting reporter on the Cerritos puts Captain Freeman on edge.
No, you think?
Fred Tatasciore, along with playing Shax, also played the character of Steve Levi. Carlos Alazaraqui plays Admiral Les Buenamigo, who finally shows his colors this week.
Yeah. Which you saw a mile wide.
Didn't help that I kept talking about it.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he's the guy. Of course.
Yeah. Allison Becker played Victoria Nuze. Sean Clements played Benir. Kevin Dorff played Starbase 80 Officer 1. Georgia King played Petra Aberdeen. Phil Lamar was the Cerritos Docking Bay officer. Lauren Lapkus played Jennifer Schrayen. Jessica McKenna was Barnes. Carl Tart was Kayshawn. And, of course, Paul F. Tompkins as the Cerritos security guard and Miggly Mo.
Miggly Mo.
That's the character's name.
Miggly Mo.
Trivia for this episode. This is the 3rd episode in the Alito arc. Because in this episode, the USS Alito shows up, and it is named after the hometown of writer Ben M. Waller's wife, Victoria. This made the front page of her hometown newspaper.
Really?
Yes. And for those of you who are curious where the town of Alito, Texas is, it is west of Mineral Wells, Texas, which means it's west of Fort Worth. The idea of Starfleet revisiting civilizations that were previously visited and checking up on them was first mentioned by Captain Freeman in the season 1 finale, No Small Parts, when the Cerritos visited Beta 3 and saw that the Batans had regressed back to worshipping Landru. Freeman even suggested to Admiral Buenamigo that they could go back to Beta 3 after it was discovered that the Onarans are doing well and didn't need Federation assistance. This episode marks the first appearance of the Ornarans and the Breckians since the Next Generation episode Symbiosis. I went back and watched the episode Symbiosis because I was curious, because while the show does give a very, very short explanation of what happened in that episode for the purposes of explaining what happened for this show, they kind of skimped on why it was Picard, quote unquote, just left. Because it was a little more than that.
Okay.
Basically, Picard and crew got involved because of a distress call
Okay.
that was made by a ship that where a deal was going down between some Onarans and some Breccians. Fun fact: Matthew Buttrick, who played Dr. David Marcus in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and Star Trek III: The Search for Spock, played one of the Breccians in this episode. Fun fact. But basically, a deal was going down to move this drug back and forth, but then Picard and crew didn't know that's what it was. They're trying to help these people get off the ship before, it burned up in an atmosphere. And they're trying to get them to beam themselves off because they're having some interference because of stuff going on in the system. And they finally get a transporter lock on something, and they go ahead and transport it over, and it's their cargo, not the 6 people on board the ship. So Riker first starts trying to tell them to get on the transport. He says, "Oh no, just forget it. Just beam over any life sign on board the ship. Just beam anything over there. That's got a life sign. Beam it over here." They only get 4. 2 of them did not get saved, unfortunately. And so they get back on here, and they're all wanting to make sure the cargo is safe. So they all go down there, and it's very obvious that the Onarans are really a lot more desperate about what's going on than the Breccians. The Breccians just want to make sure that that the cargo was safe. The Onarans really want to get into the cargo. And the Onarans are claiming that the cargo was paid for. The fact that it blew up on the ship is inconsequential. The Breccians think there is no, you didn't trade for anything, so this cargo is still ours. Now, after a little bit of time, because I'm going to jump ahead here, obviously they realize, there was a plague on Onara. Brekka did have the cure for it. The thing is, the plant that had the cure is a narcotic that is very addictive. And apparently the Breccians had this plague first. And they learned it, but did not do anything to tell the Onarans that the medicine was actually a very addictive drug. And even worse, as they continued to refine the drug to get into smaller and smaller doses, it also made the drug more addictive. So basically, Picard was stuck between, had his own Kobayashi Maru scenario here, because the Prime Directive technically was involved, as neither culture had warp drive. If you remember, Federation can't really get involved in a culture if it doesn't at least have warp drive. Technically, for political reasons, you shouldn't get involved at all if they're not Federation. But beside the point. So eventually, at some point, the Onarans decide, hey, it would be really horrible if we lost our entire market base. So we'll go ahead and give you the medicine now, and we'll work out a payment plan later, which meant Picard had no way of stopping him at that point. And went ahead and was going to transport everyone down to the planet. Was also going to transport down 2 exhaust manifolds of some kind, because that's what blew up. That was what caused the first ship to have so much trouble. And they had the entire planet only had 2 ships left, and they were not working very well either. But Picard said, no, you're not getting that, because we can't really interfere with your society. And when the Breccians said, you can't do that, that would ruin the entire economy of both planets, you weren't worried about the Prime Directive when it worked in your favor.
Okay.
So Picard beams everyone down, sans exhaust manifolds or whatever, and leaves, stating, and the thing is, this entire episode, very obviously the drug PSA.
Of course.
To the point where there is an entire point where Wesley Crusher, kind lamb that he is, asks the question, I don't understand why anyone would allow themselves to be addicted to synthetic drugs like this. And Tasha Yar has to, since she grew up on a very horrid planet, explains all this to him, and he doesn't understand it. She, of course, says, and I hope you never have to understand it. And then there's a whole thing at the end. It's like, we could have helped them. We could have made it simpler. It's up to them to figure out. It's it's what you would expect of a very humanist drug PSA.
Yeah.
Fun fact. that episode, I mentioned Tasha Yar was in this episode.
Mhm.
This episode was made and shown after the episode Skin of Evil, where she died.
So she shows up in one episode.
Well, she'll show up later on because of with actually decent reasons as to why she survived. But in that particular episode, it's technically takes place before the episode she died, even by star date. It does,
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it was the order it was shot in, and the order it was shown in. Both were placed after Skin of Evil. So, in her last scene in this, as Picard and Crusher are walking out of the cargo bay, you can see her in the background, and all of a sudden, right as the automatic doors close, she starts waving frantically at the camera. It's like she's saying bye.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just like a simple, kind of you'll never notice it on an old CRT from 1980s going bye. It's like, hey, you dropped your quarter. Kind of a thing.
I gotcha. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm gone.
Just throwing all that in there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's basically what happened in the setting that they are doing their flyby over.
I gotcha.
Also, this episode is the first appearance of the Breen since the Deep Space Nine finale, What You Leave Behind. Those were the people who had infested Braca that had the helmets that looked like they were stolen out of Jabba the Hutt's palace in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Which is what I thought when they showed up in Deep Space Nine.
Right.
Buen Amigo suggesting that the Onaran government may be secretly run by kids or somebody pretending to be the devil are references to the original series episodes Miri and the Next Generation episode Devil's Due. During Mariner's confusion by the crew's reaction to something she didn't do, she asks whether she is in a frame of mind situation, referencing Next Generation episode Frame of Mind, where William T. Riker was psychically tortured during an undercover mission on Talonis 4, which in turn was the same name of Dr. Beverly Crusher's play, Riker Found Himself. Victoria Nuze mentions several past events from the series. Ransom turning into a giant head and trying to eat the ship from strange energies. Freeman had an emotional breakdown after taking the engineering team on a spa trip in Room for Growth. Freeman transporting a Doppler into a party from an embarrassment of Dupplers. Freeman giving a Pandoronian drill instructor a poly heart attack in I Excretus. Kayshawn being turned into a puppet in Kayshawn, His Eyes Open. Spear-wielding aliens took over the Cerritos in Temporal Edict. Quark got kidnapped in Hear All, Trust Nothing. The incidents with Peanut Hamper, the Exocomp in No Small Parts, and a mathematically perfect redemption. And of course, the encounters with Q in the episode Veritas. Steve Levi continues to believe in conspiracy theories. When Mariner is sent away, he assumes that it is some sort of temporal Cold War operation. The temporal Cold War was a running storyline throughout all of Enterprise to explain why history was changing in the show.
Okay.
Shax claims that the Breen do not take prisoners, which is not true. Many episodes from the Breen show the Breens taking prisoners and slaves in battle during Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Huh. Okay.
The personnel of Starbase 80 are shown wearing 2360s era, aka Next Generation era, style comm badges. There is a Pyrithian bat on Starbase 80. Phlox on Enterprise used to own a Pyrithian bat as a pet. And Petra Aberdeen, who first appeared in Reflections, returns and suggests searching for Veldanan monies, a species originally featured in the animated series episode The Jihad. And that is what I've got for this episode. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Oh, okay. So when they get the call, it's like, oh, because the bad admiral shows up.
Were you surprised at all that he was the one behind?
No, I wasn't at all.
The implant.
No, I wasn't.
I wasn't either. Actually, I was actually a little bit surprised when I was first watching it.
Yeah,
because I did not recognize Buen Amigo. I didn't. While they mentioned Buen Amigo throughout the entire show or entire season 3, it didn't connect. The character didn't make an impact on me until this episode.
Okay, that makes sense. So be like they get the message from Buenamiga. Is that right?
Buenamigo.
Buenamigo.
It's a bad name.
Yeah, Buenamigo.
Buenamigo.
Buenamiga.
Like bueno amigo.
Yeah, bueno amigo. So they get that call and it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna get the reporter. And I'm thinking like I'm thinking the exact same thing that Captain Freeman is like, oh crap. No.
We need to have Mariner not be involved. Yes. Ironically, Mariner's the only one on her side in this entire episode. You did not see that coming, did you?
No, I mean, like a part of me, because like
you've been saying all since we started back into this that Mariner was going to get kicked out of Starfleet. Guess what? She didn't technically get kicked out. She got sent to Starbase 80, where she quit.
Yeah, there was a part of me because they're gonna be like watching the entire episode. I'm like, oh no, yeah. What is Mariner gonna do? What is Mariner gonna do? Because
I was the same way when I first watched this about a month ago now.
Like just watching it, it's like, oh crap, what is she gonna do? Because like one, she's told you do not do this, you do not do this, you do not have this, and that's what Mariner does. Be like she breaks every freaking rule because she's got plot armor. But so we get to the point where
it's called nepotism.
Nepotism.
Yes. It's called you got friends and you got family in high places, and they're making sure you're getting shielded a little bit.
Exactly. But it's like she finally goes and talks with her, and then of course be like Captain, hold on, what's her name? Freeman. Captain Freeman calls her in the office and be like, yeah, exactly. You're like, yep, you did something. Be like, you screwed the pooch girl.
Yes, and doesn't give her a chance to defend herself.
In a way, but be like leading up to it, be like, you know Mariner's gonna do something, and Mariner doesn't know when to shut up.
Yes. And I'll admit, I was actually thinking, yeah, you stepped too far on this, Mariner. Until we actually saw the news report.
Yeah, I mean, like, I still have issues with that report. I still have issues with it, but it's like, okay, she finally gets kicked off. I'm like, yes, finally.
You don't know how much I've been biting my tongue all.
Oh yeah, I knew exactly. It's like, this is the episode she gets kicked off. Yes, praise the Lord, amen. And she finally gets kicked off. And it's like, oh, okay. She starts trying to backpedal. It's like, no, be like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, yeah, right. Like you did something wrong. You're just trying not to. You're trying not to fess up to it.
She did nothing wrong in this episode, though.
I
know you're just happy to see her finally get her comeuppance.
Exactly.
This really should have happened to her a long time ago. But the thing is, she actually was the only one who was being kind to her mother and knew what her mother was going through, and in love she talked about the best parts of serving on a California class vessel, especially the Cerritos. Everyone else talked about everything you don't talk about to a reporter.
Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't understand, because like through the entire season 3, it like Mariner is just talking smack about everything. And so it makes sense that she's the one who says all this crap.
But Mariner has always shown that when the stakes are down, she is in it for the family of the Cerritos.
I agree with you on that.
Throughout the entire thing. Yes, she gives people a hard time, but she is Starfleet in such a way that almost nobody else on that ship is. Yes, she's a problem child.
Yeah,
she's actually very everyone else is just kind of going along with the flow, while she has acted from episode 1 is actively trying to be what she sees as the spiritual, what she thinks Starfleet is.
Yeah,
she is trying to live up to that ideal. Granted, there are parts throughout the episode where she's just throughout the show she's just being a pain in the butt for the most part.
Yeah, exactly,
because she is very sarcastic with the upper officers. She very much loves the idea of being a lower decks, but the thing is, her friends, as they are, she gives Boimler a hard time, but it's hard not to give Boimler a hard time. She's very supportive of Tindy and of Rutherford when they talk about all this stuff. She even is all up for showing the reporter the warp core.
Yeah.
Mariner hates the warp core. She says it's from the first episode. She says it's the most boring place on the ship.
True.
I think she secretly likes the warp core,
probably
because she likes Starfleet, and she really would be a great captain, I think, of a California class vessel, because she's very much the embodiment of Kirk, just without the restraint.
True,
but I get what you're saying. Yes, she finally. It was a boy who cried wolf situation. Every time she has been a pain in the butt, it makes sense that at a time when everyone is most worried about putting their best foot forward, and Mariner goes against what her mother and captain says, and gets involved with and privately goes and talks to the reporter, it makes perfect sense why everyone thinks she sold them under the bus, because I thought she did.
Exactly.
I thought maybe because I can almost follow the logic. Of course, everyone else would be talking up the ship, and she's gonna say, let me tell you what really happened.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean got turned into a puppet. We've had dealings with Q. That's just real life out here. We had the stuff with the Packlets. We had this whole thing where, you won't believe this, my mother got all the engineers to go on a spa trip. Hey, what engineer wants to go on a spa trip? They just want to work on engineering stuff. And she's the one who had the breakdown. Because, of course, mother had the breakdown. That's what everyone thinks she said.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened.
Yeah.
It goes to show you.
It was more of a shock to that. And I was like,
right. Because, like I said, boy who cried wolf situation. Because this is really, I still blame this all on her. Because if she had not been such a pain in the butt, in her, even with being idealistic, that's one thing.
Yeah.
The stuff she does because of her ideals, that's one thing. And she's just a lot, as well as I do, she's a jerk half the time.
Oh, yeah. She's very narcissistic.
Very, yeah. So it makes sense that, that history of that has backfired on her the one time she actually is being supportive of the whole thing. And the best part about that is, because of what her mother did by transferring her off the ship, it actually hurt her mother more. Because the one person willing to speak, according to the reporter, the one person willing to speak positively about life on the Cerritos, and just for talking to the reporter, she gets kicked off the ship.
Yeah. Because she wasn't supposed to.
She wasn't supposed to. But Freeman did this to herself by not listening to her daughter. Granted, daughter didn't give her much reason to.
No, she
didn't change anything. She should have at least found out, what did you say to her?
Yeah.
Just saying. That's my thought. I understand where you're coming from. It's like she's finally getting her just desserts. Fact of the matter is, this one time, despite the fact no one will have any proof till the report comes out, no one can know this, and nobody has her back, not even her girlfriend Jennifer. That's why when she gets when she goes to Starbase 80, she doesn't quit just because she got transferred to Starbase 80. I would have.
Yeah.
From everything this show has talked about, that would have been like, you're kicking me off this ship to send me to a starbase? Shoot, I ain't going to no starbase. I don't care how good that starbase is. You're kicking me off the ship. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm calling my best girl Petra.
Yeah.
To pick me up. And we're gonna go have Indiana Jones style fun.
Yeah, agreed.
Stealing Klingon idols from Ferengi.
Makes sense.
I may have just
went to the
next episode. But
yes.
I see what you're saying, but it's like the whole part where it's like she was doing her best and she actually did the right thing for a change, and she didn't get credit for it. I've been there.
Totally.
And this is the B. This is technically the A story, because the B story involves how the ship gets saved from the Breen, and that is the USS Alito.
Yeah.
The Texas class. And I want to be happy that the Texas class saved California class as a native Texan, but I know where this story goes.
Yep.
We'll get to that in a minute. Are you ready to move on, though?
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's go ahead and move into the stars at night. Because as native Texans, we both know the stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas. This episode was directed by Jason Zurich and written by series creator Mike McKeon. The Cerritos crew must prove their worth in a mission race. Because this is the last episode that we will get to talk about this show in a while, much like we did with the previous one. I'm going through the whole cast list.
Okay.
Tawny Newsome plays Beckett Mariner. Jack Quaid plays Brad Boimler. Noelle Wells plays Devonna Tindy. Eugene Cordero plays Sam Rutherford. Dawn Lewis plays Carol Freeman. Jerry O'Connell plays Jack Ransom. Fred Tatasciore plays Shax. And Jillian Vigman plays Ta'ana. Guest cast includes Carlos Alazaraqui as Admiral Les Buenamigo and the Alito computer.
That makes sense.
Georgia King as Petra Aberdeen. Phil Lamar in an unlisted role. I suspect he was a crew member somewhere on the ship.
Probably.
Jessica McKenna as Barnes. Tox Olagwandoye as Amina Ramsey. Sam Richardson as Vendome. Al Rodrigo as Durango. Gabriel Ruiz as Talin. Paul Scheer as Andy Billups. Carl Tart as Kayshawn. Paul F. Tompkins as Miglimo. Baron Vaughn as Mayer. And Michelle Wong as Wong.
Okay, then.
The title of this episode is from the opening lyrics to the American folk song Deep in the Heart of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Continuity. 4 admirals appearing on the Starfleet Council have been previously encountered in the series. Admiral Wong first appeared in Temporal Edict. Admiral Parker appeared in We'll Always Have Tom Paris and Reflections, and the Trill and one of the human admirals previously appeared in trial sketches in the episode Grounded. Billups tells his engineering team that he wants to see commander data level work and that the isolinear chips better be a blur, referencing the Next Generation episode, The Naked Now, where Data replaced a ton of isolinear chips so fast that it would look like a blur. Ta'ana references being previously assigned to an Oberth class starship, making the reference to that class for the first time by name in dialogue. Ransom teaches a group of officers how to command respect, which involves sitting on a chair by swinging his leg around the back of the seat before sitting down. This is a reference to the unusual way that William T. Riker would sit down in the chair, which Trekkies have commonly referred to as the Riker maneuver. The computer terminal Admiral Buenamigo used to communicate with the Alito was visually similar to the one used for the M5 Multitronic unit from the Star Trek Original Series episode, The Ultimate Computer, which also dealt with a computer designed to command and control starship that it resulted in it attacking other ships. A similarly styled interface was also depicted in the illusory Sampaguita, the other Rutherford's spaceship.
Yeah.
Piloted by Red Rutherford in Reflections, foreshadowing Rutherford's involvement in the artificial intelligence behind the Texas class.
Mm-hmm.
The Cerritos revisits the Galadornians who first appeared in the first episode of Lower Decks, Second Contact. Freeman refers to Augmenic 9 as one of those Brigadoon-type planets that only phases into our dimension for a couple of hours a year. The name is a reference to the 1947 musical Brigadoon, which was about a magical Scottish village that only appeared for one day every 100 years. A planet shifting from one dimension to another is also a reference to the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Meridian, where the titular planet would appear in regular space once every 6 years and was also based on Brigadoon. The episode concludes the story arc concerning the origins of Rutherford's implant, which was most recently explored in Reflections. This is also the 4th and, so far as we know, the final episode of the Alito arc of this show. When the truth about Buenamigo is revealed, Freeman insisted that he's not one of those bad faith admirals that's up to no good. This is a reference to a recurring trope throughout the Star Trek franchise where Starfleet admirals tend to be shown as antagonistic toward the main characters and take part in secret and illegal projects, including Admiral Cartwright, Admiral Mark Jameson, Admiral Nora Satie, Admiral Kennelly, Admiral Eric Pressman, Admiral Layton, and Admiral Dougherty. Dougherty was the one from Insurrections who they had to use the briar patch the way Brer Rabbit did against.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Another reference to Song of the South this episode. The mysterious benefactor behind Petra Aberdeen's mission to retrieve and return stolen artifacts is revealed to be Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, whose archaeological interests were established across many episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. This episode also established that Picard was an admiral in 2381, which the press kit for Star Trek Picard Season 1 and the novel The Last Best Hope earlier established that Picard left the USS Enterprise E and was promoted to Admiral in 2381 in order to lead in the evacuation and relocation of the Romulans prior to their sun going supernova, as we see the aftermath of in Star Trek 2009. The procedure for the Cerritos to eject its warp core was referenced back in An Embarrassment of Duplers, when Rutherford and Tendi ejected a working warp core from a kit model of the Cerritos they built and used it as a makeshift explosive to open a hatch above them and escape the Duplers.
So
they put way too much thought into it.
They did. Agreed.
In that episode.
So curious, because I know they've ejected the warp core before in Star Trek.
In previous ones, it did not require two people physically inserting keys to eject it. Voyager, the one or two times they had to eject their core, B'Elanna Torres, the chief engineer, who was also not Starfleet technically, as she was one of the Maquis members that had to be integrated into the crew, pretty much didn't require anyone's help to do so. At least it's never shown on screen. Insurrection did not require it when LaForge ejected the core to use the briar patch the way Brer Rabbit did. And it's not common for that to be seen, but but other instances of where the warp core was integral to whatever they were doing, such as the self-destruct mechanism, did require one or more officers of senior level to be able to do.
Yeah.
So I am guessing that perhaps in the other shows, whoever was in chief security had maybe already given their approval on their console, so the engineer could then make that decision, but that's never actually shown. And admittedly, in this one, this could be a weird feature of the Cerritos at a time after the Dominion War, when they didn't want one person to be able to hit a button and eject a warp core if it was someone getting into the ship that wasn't supposed to be there, like say a member of the Dominion. That's my thought process.
Okay, got it.
There's not much that took place in universe in the Alpha and Beta quadrants after the Dominion War, so exactly what security procedures would be involved, which I can see this as being one we're ever gone into. Okay. The crew of the California class ships who appeared on the view screen when the Armada arrived have all appeared in previous episodes. Captain Amina Ramsey of the USS Oakland and several of her senior officers served as temporary command crew for the Cerritos in Much Ado About Boimler. Captain Durango and the USS Merced appeared in Moist Vessel. Captain Mayer and the USS Carlsbad appeared in Mining the Mines. And Captain Vendome had originally been an ensign on the Cerritos in Second Contact before rapidly rising through the ranks to take command of the USS Inglewood, which we heard about in The Least Dangerous Game. Last but not least, the crew of the USS Alhambra, who resembled alternate universe versions of the Cerritos crew, was encountered by T'Ana when she previously boarded the wrong ship at Douglas Station in Veritas.
That's right.
T'Lyn, who first appeared in the episode Wedge Dudge, returns having now transferred to the Cerritos from her original posting on the Cheval. She is wearing the previous rank lozenge of an ensign, the provisional rank lozenge of an ensign, in the same style as that worn by former Maquis officers on USS Voyager. In the franchises, not just this series, but the entire franchise's first post-credits scene, Rutherford's original implant containing Badgie being salvaged from the wreckage of the Pac-led clump ship from no small parts. It had previously lit up when it was shown floating among the flotsam as Peanut Hamper constructed her ship in a mathematically perfect redemption. But I want to talk about something that this trivia did not go into.
Okay.
The sound effect of the tractor beam.
Okay.
Was not Federation issue. Is not by any Alpha or Beta Quadrant species that I'm aware of. It really sounded more like a Borg tractor beam.
Okay. Okay, I just watched First Contact a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You're kind of right.
Yes.
It does sound.
And you know what's really interesting about the Borg? After the end of Star Trek Voyager, we don't know what happened to them. Because the only way Voyager was able to escape as they were stealing the Borg Transwarp's conduit was by planting a program bomb that into the hive consciousness that should have separated tons of pretty much caused a ton of different Borg drones to regain their individuality and should have crippled the Borg hive mind considerably. But we do know the Borg were still doing stuff post that because of the Borg cube that shows up in Picard season 1. So interesting that Badgie might be involved with the Borg. It would be kind of cool to see the Borg come back because Borg were always my favorite villains. So yes, what are your thoughts on this episode?
This episode,
because I know what you said when I texted you to make sure you knew about the after credits scene.
I thought it was like okay, this is like be like obviously they're in a conference, and then the admiral, the mustache twirling Admiral
Buenamigo,
Buenamigo, decides to be like, oh, we're going to dismiss all the California class for the Texas class,
which makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Here's the thing: I can see maybe canceling all current missions for the California class in favor of the Texas class taking over, and that might call for at least a short amount of time that the Cali class be mothballed, especially after maybe the Cali class is not as needed as much after the Dominion War, since Starfleet shouldn't need that many. If the Texas class is truly taking over, you may not need that many manned ships if you've got an automated ship group doing all the grunt work. That's the thing about the California class is it's meant to be the lower decks ships. It's not ships of the line like the Enterprise or even that Sovereign class that showed up in this episode for no good reason.
Just be like, oh, we can do a Sovereign class in here.
We'll just throw the Sovereign class in here, and boy, they didn't stand up long.
No, which threw me for a freaking loop.
That's supposed to be the most advanced ship in the fleet.
Why is it getting taken out?
Why is it getting taken out by the? Granted, the Texas class would have the newer technology, and it's got a computer.
A Sovereign class.
Got a human class, but it's a Sovereign class ship.
It's a freaking warship.
Yes,
which made no sense. But we'll be like Captain, more like the admiral says like, oh, we need to scrap all the California class for no reason except for like, oh, this one crew didn't do it right, so we're gonna scrap everything. Makes no sense.
It would make more sense. Okay, I mentioned a TOS episode in the beginning that's called The Ultimate Computer in the trivia, that the interface for the Alito took its inspiration from. In that episode of they actually outfitted this computer into the Enterprise for the same idea of like, why put a manned vessel out there when an unmanned vessel would be able to do a lot of this stuff? And basically the same reason why attendees saw that there might have been life there. Basically that same sort of minuscule thing the computer wouldn't catch, but a human, a biological person would catch. It was the reason why it was done there. But in fact, I think at some point someone said, "I'm going to Dunsel." Rutherford said, "I'm going to hit you so hard you'll be Dunseled" or something like that. Dunsel came from that episode where they referred to the captain of the ship as being Captain Dunsel because Dunsel was another word for useless.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Dunsel. Yeah. So if they had gone more like that, even though it'd be very obviously more based on the Ultimate Computer, that where they were changing out, like taking the command crew out of a California class vessel and putting this computer in charge and then changing up all like the crew quarters to be more, more solid, like we see of the Texas class. Where it's apparently got replicators built into it.
Yeah.
And on a mass scale. Maybe I could accept it more like that, but yeah, mothballing an entire fleet of grunt vessels because you have an automated vessel that looks fancy and shiny and new is a little odd.
It is odd.
Now, I also want to say this as a Texan. At first, I was annoyed that a Californian who wrote this episode, which is why the ship is a California class in the first place, I was annoyed that he would cast Texas as the villains, this Texas class as villains, because it's not hard to read between maybe the lines where California's great, Texas is evil, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Except I realized something. Who else would you cast as California's rival?
It's all like Alaska.
There's not enough people there.
Sure.
Texas is only a little bit bigger in land area, and it's a little bit under in terms of people, just simply because of Los Angeles. But you talk about personalities. I mean, Texas and California are the only two that when you ask someone where they're from, they say that's where they're from.
Yeah.
Texas
California.
or California. Elsewhere, they might say, oh, I'm from Chicago, or I'm from New York City, or New York generally.
Yeah.
I don't count that because everyone usually means the city when they say New York.
Right.
Or they might say they're from Florida. No one will admit they're from Florida. I don't know. Floridians, I apologize if I just made you mad. But I'm saying in general.
Yeah.
In general culture, if you're going to cast an entire state against another state, California and Texas are pretty dang close. Is about the only thing that really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because we're the only ones that are really antagonistic against each other. So I'm really more annoyed that Texas lost in some ways because we were the villain ship and not the hero ship, because the hero ship has to survive.
Yeah.
This is not, is it only been, if they had somehow blown the Cerritos up and then you had brought it back in another episode, maybe I could believe that, but that would require the Texas to win, and that would actually be a bad ending for the season, and you wouldn't have this thing with all the California classes coming together to fend off this last ship named after a small Texas town that I actually had to look up where it is, despite the fact I live in this state. But I'm still a little annoyed that the Texas class was cast as villains. But I've said this from the beginning, that this show is doing a lot better job of setting up the troubles we see later on in Picard than Picard did. Because a lot of what's going to happen, this is a bit of a spoiler. This is not really a spoiler because Star Trek already showed some of this.
Yeah.
On First Contact Day in 2385, 4 years after this episode.
Okay.
April the 5th, 2385. Yeah. While the shipyards at in Mars, Utopia Planitia shipyards in Mars, are going to be destroyed, blown up by a terrorist attack, and it's going to be done by a bunch of androids that they had built to help speed things along, to get ships to go help evacuate Romulus from the star exploding. And that event, while pretty much stopping anyone helping Romulus at that point, will cause all synthetic life forms to be banned in the Federation. Think about who that would mean. Data at the end of Nemesis, if you don't know, dies.
Yes. Yeah.
And so B4 would be the only Noonian robot that would still be active that would affect. And we see that in Picard, him already being studied at the Daystrom Institute and being split into different pieces. The Doctor from Voyager may have an issue because he's technically a computer program. It's a hologram.
Yeah.
He's technically a synthetic life form. The exocomps, whatever you say about Peanut Hamper, I completely agree with.
Yeah.
But the rest of the entire race, probably innocent.
Yeah.
Of any of these crimes, and yet something bad's gonna happen with them, and all of that is gonna come down in 2385, 4 years after this, and in the original context, there's no reason other than that the fact that this one group of synthetics attacked these Noonian style androids attacked and did all this. Granted, we found out later that there was more to it than that, obviously, but you don't know that when they first bring this up.
Right.
They really comes out of nowhere when they show that. And it's kind of supposed to, because it's supposed to be building mystery.
Yeah.
But no point throughout the whole series do they actually go into what all was going on also around that time. This is actually doing a pretty decent job, especially when you get Badgie being a problem in season 1. We get Landrew at the end of season 1 shows up. We get the evil computer from that one episode in season 2 comes up. And then we see Peanut Hamper once she gets found again is in the same place in the Daystrom Institute, right next to that one evil computer. And then you have all of the Texas class, which are synthetic androids, probably not of Noonien Soong level intelligence, but it's the same AI that powered Badgie for the most part. So to normal people, that's not going to be that much of a difference. And then now we know that Badgie is still alive. Wow, where they are really going to show, it's not just going to be, oh, this one attack caused all this hatred to show up. No, it's going to be a constant thing after constant thing to where that attack is just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And I love that this is doing the show is doing this when it didn't have to.
Agreed.
They could have just gone and made a funny show. No, they're actually building lore to move the story of Star Trek forward to make it a point where when Picard happens, it makes sense. Anyway,
agreed. Okay,
sorry, I had to nerd out there for a minute.
You're good. You're perfectly fine. The idea of like that Captain Freeman is just like, oh no, we need to do a race for this. I'm like, you need to do a what? You a race to do this?
She was panicked because she didn't want to lose her job.
I understand that.
After she embarrassed the entire class in the Federation. I'm surprised she didn't get fired right there. Because she should have been.
But it's like, okay, we're going to do this race. I enjoy what they do with Tindy. I really enjoy what they do with Rutherford.
Yes.
That Rutherford understands, oh, it's the code. Oh, it's this. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's this guy. It's the mustache twirling evil.
Yes. He's
Admiral.
the one who caused me to lose my memory. You're keeping the implant anyway. Yeah, because it's got all these other cool features. Rutherford, your engineering is going to kill you.
Someday.
Bear in mind, we still have evil Boimler out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Working for Section 31.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, I totally get that. That's cool. It's Tindy being herself and she's worried, this kind of stuff. I love that. There's a part of me like when Mariner gets brought up, because I'm thinking, oh no, be like, this is gonna be like everybody's worried about Mariner, and
just like everyone was worried about Boimler when he was on the Titan.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it was because that Mariner is kind of our main character.
Yeah.
In the story.
And it's split between her and Boimler to be honest.
That is true. But it was like, okay, they're not focusing on Mariner, they're focused on everything else going on. Besides the captain, be like her grief for what she did.
Well, everyone feels guilty because they all talked down to Mariner and their last time they talked to her.
Right.
The only reason they know she's not on Starbase 80 anymore is because probably the captain told everybody she left Starfleet. Or they could easily check those records themselves.
Yeah. That was another thing, kind of going back to the previous episode where the reporter is talking about everything the Cerritos has ever done that, kind of shady, that kind of stuff. This is like a Federation who's kind of be like, oh, we've done this. Be like, we want to be very transparent about everything, right?
Except this is right after the Dominion War. you know as well as I do that when a war breaks out,
Yeah.
rules change. What you would have gladly done in peacetime in
Yeah.
terms of transparency, you don't do in a war because you don't want the enemy to find out, especially when you have an enemy that will look like you and can easily get into stuff down to the thumbprint, down to stuff that actually.
But
the only way they could tell when that a person was not a changeling was to take a blood sample. So it's very much like The Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing in that way. So that's the situation they're coming out of. So they still have a lot of security stuff still in place, a lot of that paranoia and panic about who is actually in the Federation. It's one of the reasons why Section 31 appears to be coming back, maybe not as clandestine as they used to be. They're coming back maybe almost full force, perhaps, since they have their own special comm badge again. So yeah, this is a different Federation than Picard's Federation.
Okay, that makes more sense.
This is one coming out of a brutal war that nearly this is like coming out of World War II. This was not Cold War like with the Klingons. This was a bloody attack over and over and over again against between the Federation and essentially the anti-Federation that was picking up systems in the Alpha Quadrant with like the Breen and the Cardassians and making them part of the Dominion. The Dominion was trying to take over, and they had a good. It really did look like it was going that way. And honestly, because of the way the Dominion War stopped in the last episode of Deep Space Nine, it's kind of sudden. So there's no, you have to think from their point of view, they're still on alert. They don't know what's going to come.
That makes sense.
That was not a war that like the Federation had ever fought before, because everyone before that was really more of a Cold War. This was full on military, full on battles everywhere. So yeah, this is a different Starfleet that's had to act. Yes, they are returning back to their explorer roots, but there's still a lot of paranoia involved.
Makes sense. Okay, so that makes a little more sense, because I kept thinking, it's like, but wouldn't like people in general like know what these ships are doing?
Even in Picard and Kirk's time, not necessarily, because you also have to remember this is one of the things I don't like about the Abrams verse. These are supposed to be distances far enough away that it's like being on the frontier in the Old West back in like right after the Civil War. It's supposed to take time for communications to occur.
Okay,
it's not meant to be the instantaneous that we see, and that is true probably up until Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
because I can see the need of maybe upping the communication speeds between the systems better.
I gotcha.
After it's a problem in the Abrams verse, in my opinion, because they make everything seem like too much like Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see why maybe subspace communications might be in better shape at this point, because of probably a lot of wartime money was put into increasing the capabilities of the subspace network.
Yeah. I get that. I get it. So,
and plus, why would any military organization publicly talk about every single thing that even if it's unclassified?
Yeah.
You don't talk about everything.
Yeah.
You have no need to. And there's some things you probably wish were classified that aren't, that you pray nobody ever asks about.
Sure.
Such as, a prominent businessman who owns 70 some odd franchises across the galaxy being kidnapped under your watch.
True.
Granted, it was his fault to begin with, but that's not how it would have been talked about. True. Especially on Deep Space Nine, which was the essentially the front lines of the Dominion War. Bet your communication to that station's still in good shape.
Understood.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyways,
I'm not trying to tear down every point you bring up. I'm just pointing out this is probably why.
Yeah, it's good points. It's good points. It's like I get it, but there's those parts of it's like, okay, so be like they realize that the Bonamigo is the bad guy, and now he's gonna be like, oh, because now they know, and be like, oh, I should have destroyed you, Rutherford. Thank you. I should have destroyed everything part of you, Rutherford. But it's like, okay, I'm gonna have my ship destroy you. oh, it backfired. It's going to kill me. No. And it's like, okay, that's kind of funny. But at the same time, it's just like, okay. And then the Sovereign class shows up. And then it gets he's just butt kicked.
That was
why?
I think because they needed about 2 more minutes of footage.
That is true, but it's like,
which in a streaming show should not be a problem.
It just made no sense for this Sovereign class, which was like the warship of warships,
yes,
gets taken out by just like,
at least it wasn't the Enterprise.
That is true. It's like, oh my gosh, that gave me a headache. And then it's just like, okay, like of course Mariner shows up and like all the other California class show up. I'm like, how did she convince all these captains to show up? When be like, it's Mariner, and everybody probably knows Mariner is not the greatest person to work with.
Mariner has connections.
That's true. She does have connections.
She has that connection with her friend that runs that one ship,
mm-hmm.
and knows that when Mariner is actually active on the ball and not actively trying to screw stuff up,
mm-hmm.
is probably the best person in Starfleet.
I would agree with you.
The way they show that off, that's how
Yeah.
it's presented.
Agreed.
That makes sense. Vendome, the Bolian captain of that one ship, he knows exactly how she is because she served under him. He knows how kind of character, and when push comes to shove, she knows that she's probably telling the truth. And plus, the way she found out that the Cerritos was getting attacked,
mm-hmm.
they probably all knew it too.
True.
And the only reason they hadn't shown up over there anyway is because they needed somebody to say, hey, if we are going to survive as a class, we need to band together and go take out this robot ship.
Mm.
And Mariner is very good at being what do you call it? She's very good at encouraging, at convincing people to do something, to actually. Granted, she misuses this a lot, but she does have this ability to encourage people to do stuff they may not want to do, be iffy to do, because none of those ships had orders,
right?
They probably were in stand down mode because to see how this mission race thing was going to turn out, since it was going to determine.
Yeah,
I don't know why this was allowed to determine this.
Mm-hmm.
In the first place where they showed it, but to see how this would go. And the fact that an actual officer found this thing and it actually may have caused an issue, a prime directive issue, that the ship, if it malfunctioned, would have skipped.
Mm-hmm.
It was thankfully just a little bit of dust in the soil, but that has been known to actually be something in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
This time it wasn't. What if it is next time?
Yeah.
And it's a Texas class that found it and just said, "Oh, it's not biological life. I don't care."
Yeah. There, I agree with you on that. I completely agree. Yeah,
it's horrible for me to talk ill of Texas, but
it's a fictional ship.
I get that.
Like you brought a lot of really good points, because there again,
I've been thinking of this episode for 2 months, thinking, do I like this or not? Does any of this make rational sense? There is stuff I don't like that very much feels like. It's funny. Of all the episodes, Mike McKayen's episodes are usually the ones I like the least.
Mm.
And yet he's the creator of the show.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know he has ideas and he's probably the starter and stopper of these things. And he's probably executive producing the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like his writing style because it involves Shax doing the Chariot of Fire run to the
that was stupid.
It was stupid, but I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then of course all the Cerritos the California classes showing up. It's like, why not just every manned Federation vessel? Why have just one class? Have all of them show up, because this is going to affect all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Once the Texas class takes out the Cali class, what's stopping it from taking out all the old Constitution classes, all the old Excelsior classes, all the old Miranda classes, and all the other ships that are still active and still doing good works out there? Eventually, the Sovereign class is going to be affected by this if it's allowed to continue, where you follow it all the way through. Because at some point, someone's going to ask, if this one class of vessel can do it without anyone being involved, why aren't we doing that with all of them?
Yeah. Like
It's like self-checkout at a grocery store.
yeah,
They started with 1 or 2 as a convenience, and now it's really the only thing half the time you can get,
true.
except
Good.
where you work
Yeah, for now.
for now.
So yeah, but like you brought a lot of points up, and there again, I do have a lot of biases towards Mariner because I haven't liked Mariner.
I know
for
this
a long time, but
And it's just very easy for me to play devil's advocate because I kind of you have to remember my rationale for how this works in Star Trek, because a lot of this really shouldn't, is that this is not the events that's actually happened. The events that they're portraying don't happen exactly the way we're seeing them. We are seeing a holo novel or a holodrama based on the logs of the 4 main characters.
yeah,
And a lot of them are going to exaggerate, especially since Mariner's one of these 4. So of course she's going to be putting in all this other stuff that maybe doesn't have anything to do with anything, but shows her being cool. Boimler's going to be focusing on all the cool upper, everything everyone else is doing, especially the stuff on the Titan. Rutherford, of course, going to be focusing on the engineering, and Tendi, she's focused on all the cool science stuff and all that cool stuff. And the way their stories mash together is way we get this. That's the lens we are seeing it through. Now, granted, there is an episode of Strange New Worlds that's coming up that probably I'm going to make us have to review as part of this story arc.
Okay.
When it happens, even though it's live action, because of the fact that it may affect season 4.
Okay.
But we'll get to that when we get to season 4.
Yeah.
And that if that shows those characters in a more standard Starfleet style, like the rest of the Star Trek franchise, that will pretty much prove my point. That this is not who these characters really are. This is how they're being portrayed by someone who is looking at these logs and trying to get at the heart and pretty much making a comedy out of these events. Because that's what I think is. I think that we are seeing somebody's. Remember how earlier in the series when there was those rumors going on around about Mariner and how that she actually started. That kind of proves what's going on here. She is very much a tall tale teller.
Very true.
And this really does feel like more of that tall tale telling in some ways. I love the show, don't get me wrong, but I still don't think this is what actually happened, because otherwise, why would you make the Pakleds? The Pakleds are stupid characters.
Yeah. Why would you make them that stupid?
They're not that stupid. They do follow a logic. There's not like, oh, you want a peace treaty? That's above my helmet. You're going to need a bigger helmet. They're not that stupid. They're stupid, but they're not that stupid. Quark is that greedy, but you don't show it that obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway. Because the other thing is you look at anyone reprising their roles on the show, they're not reprising them how they were playing them. They have an ounce of fun thrown in there.
Of course.
Because this is not who the characters really are. Even Riker's the best option for this, because Riker doesn't throw that much jazz into what he talks and how he talks on the show. It comes up, don't get me wrong. But it's not like he's not saying, give me a warp factor into 5, 6, 7, 8, like at the end of the first season. It's not like that. Anyway, sorry, I'm geeking out.
You're fine. Yeah, I mean, it's trying to look past those biases, because they're gonna have a bias towards Mariner, but it's just like I enjoy what they did. I enjoy what they did with the episode, and it's just like, oh, okay, like maybe Mariner didn't do what maybe she didn't do what
everyone thought she did.
Yeah, everyone thought she did. I was halfway expecting that it was something that be like someone pulled something strings in the storyboard, but like, oh, we've got to make this nice. It wasn't really Mariner. Everybody else was doing it. That's my thought.
Except that doesn't fit her character. I get what you're saying, because on a surface, yeah, she's the one who's the pain in the butt. That's a lot of her. But the thing is, her character is more complex than that.
Yeah.
She is the kind of one who would stand up to someone who was trying to badmouth the California class, especially when she saw who all was being allowed to talk, and thought, these people they're great people. I love them, but they don't know when to keep their mouths shut. about certain things,
Okay.
which was proven. They didn't know when to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
I get your point. I get your point, and I know you don't like Mariner as a character, but I think she's a better character than you're giving her credit for. I'm saying.
I can see points, but at the same time, looking at like through like a psychological lens, it's just more. It's I would literally have to break it down. Literally break it down to like who this character is, and it's just like at some points it makes no sense why this character would do this. But I understand it's a comedy. Let's have fun with it. But at the same time, be like a character like Mariner would not do this. But that's just me.
I think she would under the right circumstances. And I think those were the right circumstances.
Okay, fair enough.
That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, fair enough. Totally fair.
Because people are more...
I know people are more
complex than they seem.
Yes, agreed.
Anyway.
Agreed. Yeah, be like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. And there again, trying to not let my biases be like, yes, she's gone. Bye. kind of thing.
And besides, just like when Boimler left at the end of season 1, there was no way they weren't going to find some excuse to bring her back.
Yeah, bring him back. Yeah.
Bring him back. And when she left here, it's like, okay, you're having an excuse. Maybe it won't be till the beginning of season 4, but you'll have an excuse to bring her back. And it will make sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it makes sense. She realized, honestly, her leaving was probably the best thing for her.
Okay, yeah.
Because she'd been in Starfleet all the time. So leaving, she was allowed that breath of fresh air, but she was already feeling like, yeah, this freedom is nice, but now I want to go back. And
That's
maybe I have to make sacrifices, even in my ideals, in order to make this work. Because Starfleet is very complex. It's not going to fit my ideals all the time. No organization does.
Right. So
maybe I need to get over myself.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's what she shows, because she went back to even though she knew the crew probably felt guilty, especially she knew her mother probably felt guilty. She literally went back to an area where everyone, the last time she saw them, hated her guts.
Yeah.
That's hard to do, even if you know they probably are going to forgive you.
Yeah.
Or they're going to ask to be forgiven themselves.
Yeah.
That's hard. And she still did it.
Yeah.
Because she knew the right thing to do was because none of the California classes needed to lose their jobs simply because, or be broken up simply because this automated new tech thing came through. That's obviously not going to be as good as people think it is, because she's studied Starfleet history. She knows the events of the ultimate computer. She knows this is going to go the same way. I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it. But the one thing I've known about Mariner from the beginning is that she is very idealistic, and she wishes Starfleet was probably this way it was before the Dominion War. But the Dominion War changed a lot of stuff, and now she wants to go to what she believes Starfleet is, maybe not what it actually is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this story is going to require her to, and we have seen this, I think, her growing up.
Yeah.
And coming to the realization.
I would agree with you. And
yes.
Definitely in season 3, she's grown up a little as a character. Now,
I think she's grown overall, but that's just me.
Yeah. I would agree with you on that. Be like, she has grown up. She has grown. She has matured in some ways. My hope would be in season 4, it's that you see that Mariner has turned a new leaf, and she's, not this,
obnoxious
about everything.
That is the thing. She is obnoxious, and to some degree, that is going to still be part of her character, because that's just how she is. But hopefully we can even see at the beginning of this season, she was starting to have more respect for the chain of command, even if she was still being very free-spirited about how she did things. A little bit more respect.
A little bit.
And now we're getting, she actively asks for Ransom to be her mentor. Despite the fact that, granted, part of that's like, yeah, I want to bug Ransom because it's fun.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, she thought he was hot in that one episode of season 1.
Sure.
When he went full Federation.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some, I don't know. She technically is also dating Jennifer. So
right. Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. I think she is learning. Boimler has had a lot of growth this season with the whole bold Boimler thing, which has been good or ill sometimes, but for the most part, it works for him.
Right, agree.
It's worked for him a lot. Tendi has grown as a science, not just as being in the science officer training, but also in her acceptance of who she is. Because in the DS9 episode, she had to go back. She had to rely on her Orion pirate training because apparently she's a pretty big deal in the Orion pirate syndicate.
Apparently,
we still don't know what all that's about yet. Even though in that one episode, someone called her princess. And then you got Rutherford, who has had the most plot of the entire show so far.
Agreed.
What with the implants, and we finally get a lot of answers in this last episode. So I'm curious where they're going with his character too.
Yeah.
If we're talking about characters who had the least amount of character growth, that goes to Miglimo, because he's still the same stupid bird he was when we first met him.
That is true.
Making food puns.
Yeah, food puns the entire time. Agreed.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, looking forward to season 4 whenever that comes out.
It's supposed to come out at the end of next year. I'm guessing we will not jump on that immediately, especially if we are still in the middle of either X-Men or we've started something else.
Yeah.
Because we will have to jump on something as soon as we finish X-Men. But the next time we are able to jump in and talk about season 4, maybe when season 5 is coming out, like we did these. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I'm be happy to see where this goes.
Agreed.
So you got anything else before we cut out of here? We do need to talk about what we're reviewing next.
Yes.
Which for the actual show is I keep saying a YouTube video. It is a fan animation, I believe.
Yeah, they're
or at least it's someone who did some animation.
Yeah, they're
apparently I'm not signed into Google Sheets. Yes, I know. So next week we're reviewing the short My Cat Lucy. What is that about?
That is, I'm not going to spoil it because it's a short and it's interesting. It's a guy and his cat. And the cat does some very interesting things.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave that up to like Drew over here watching it just to see his reaction. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's happening.
Okay. And then for animated series, we're going to be looking at the first 2 episodes of X-Men, the animated series, Night of the Sentinels, parts 1 and 2.
Nice.
And that's how we are starting off 2023.
Yep.
So join us next week for that. In the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob.
And if I can hit the buttons in the right order, I can play the outro. And we'll catch you in the next frame.
You can follow Jacob on his Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. His Facebook page, Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where he tries to draw each and every day. His Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. His Twitter at Jacob Heron. And his Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. You can find Drew on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. His Facebook page, Drew's Photo Bin, to see his photography. His Letterboxd page at GGeorge759. His Twitter at GGeorge759. And Instagram at Drew Dodgen. You can like us on Facebook at the Cellcast Podcast, on Twitch at the Cellcast Gaming, on YouTube at Cellcast, on Twitter at cast_cell. The Cellcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else fine podcasts are downloaded from. Please rate and review us where you found us, and also on Podchaser. Email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. The Cellcast is a proud member of both the Pop Americana and Culture Box media networks. For more information, please see the link in the description. Our theme song is Drop and Roll by Silent Partner. And remember, that's Cell with a single L.
I want to be a dentist.
He's definitely not getting a hold of my teeth.